practices, even stronger than the farmers themselves use, and to establish really strong GPS evidence that the team went into a particular barn and not the one where the hens were killed. So the final testimony should take place on October 1st, and that's another Pack the Courtroom date, so if you can make it to that, definitely come in your blue DxE t-shirts. We're going to hear from Sherston, the vet. She'll be talking, I think, more about biosecurity and her familiarity with our practices, and we should have a ruling soon after that. So the Norbest 6, that's Wayne, John, Samer, Andrew, Paul, Diane, and the Smithfield 5, which is the same without Diane, we're expecting the pretrial date to be set in early October, so we'll know the date in early October. And we expect that date to be around Thanksgiving, which is kind of awesome for the media narrative, I think, that we're going to be talking about these cases, around Thanksgiving when people are eating so many turkeys. The Sunrise 40, which is a whole handful of us. Of course, that was last May at the ALC, as we know, when we were all there documenting the conditions and rescuing animals in Sunrise Farms, where we've been investigating for years. Charges have yet to be filed, so we have no new news about the Sunrise 40. Hopefully, they won't be filed. We don't know yet. The Whole Foods Challenge is where Wayne and a Terret were arrested after just asking a question in a Boulder Whole Foods. That was a live stream that you can see and a short video that went viral. A Terret's being charged with misdemeanor trespass, and Wayne is being charged with threatening bodily injury. We have upcoming court date on that for Wayne. And then Wayne's goat trial in North Carolina, that's 2 felonies, breaking and entering and larceny, for rescuing Rain, a sick baby goat from a meat farm. He has a hearing coming up on October 11th for that. And then Lamb Jam is a group of folks who are being charged with protesting without a permit and felony federal trespassing for protesting a festival in a federally owned park. We still don't have a date on that, and so we're waiting on a court date for them. Oh, sorry. It's like the 21st? 9/21? 20. Okay, sorry. September 20th is the date on that. And then just the one more, Sierra is brand new. The charges are brand new. That's 2 felonies and a misdemeanor for rescuing Rosie, who's a sick baby goat from a Smithfield farm. Her court date is September 5th. We're working on getting that postponed. Definitely stay tuned for opportunities to help all these folks, especially Sierra. There might be a call-in campaign for her. That's all.
Thank you, Eva.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so now we're going to hear from Miriam really quick about the updates on the membership drive.
Just a reminder that we're having a work party this afternoon at 4 o'clock, 4 to 6, right here at ARC. We're going to be messaging donors and supporters, thanking them for their support, and also asking them to become a member. We have a membership drive that was just kicked off. If you haven't seen the video, check it out and then share it. So that's all. I hope we see you tonight, this afternoon, 4 to 6. Thanks.
Thanks, Miriam. Okay, now we'll move on to committee updates. So we'll first hear from Cassie about communications.
Thanks, Miriam. So this is our slide to show communications main goal. You probably remember from the last couple months that we've been talking about this and doing regular check-ins with the committees, that our main metric we measure is global email subscribers, because we can reach way more people if we have way more people on our global email list. And our Q3 goal, which is going to be in a month when Q3 ends, is 200,000 global email subscribers, but we're still around our Q2 goal. So the 70,000 people that we need in Q3, we're basically those 70,000 people behind. And when I first put this on here on Thursday, the number of global email subscribers we had was 128,124, which you can see in the picture when I screenshotted it then, and just updated it this morning because now it's 128,692. Woo! But that's still 70,000 behind. So we are going up a few hundred, regularly, but that's not the few thousand that we want to go up each week in order to reach that goal. And one thing that we're thinking in the communications committee about doing, well, we have a bunch of video ideas that will hopefully help, like a video about Ridgeland, which after investigating and rescuing Julie, that activists in Wisconsin are mobilizing to get a ban on dog experimentation and shut down potentially Ridgeland Farms, the farm we investigated. So if we're doing a video around that, and we'll need your support when that video comes out in a couple of weeks to share it and to get as many people as possible who love dogs and animals to sign that petition to shut down that place and save thousands of dogs from testing. But another thing is we're thinking about maybe posting a video asking people just directly sign up for our email list, because Facebook could shut us down at any point, and we need other ways to contact you because we can't control Facebook, but we can reach people with their email. So, you know, take that yourselves too. If you know anyone who cares about DxE but is only on Facebook, really try and get them to join our email list, and that's what we'll be working on in the next month to reach our goal.
Thank you, Cassie. We'll move on to Tanya to update us on direct action.
Thank you, Cassie. So in direct action, our main goal that we measure is the number of activists that take direct action, nonviolent direct action. And that means either a sanctuary work day or maybe doing outreach such as tabling and protesting. And this month, our number were not great. We had 125 unique activists out of our 300 goal. And I think the reason for this was because we ended up doing the day of action a weekend before, and it was an outreach event on campus. But that outreach event helped bring a lot of people to ARC the following week to Puppies and Vegan Ice Cream, which helped the community committee's goal. And that was one of the things that we were thinking, that maybe we'll have less people in attendance during our Agos Day of Action, but that we will be able to reach new people who will come to the community and get involved. And we already saw that because Animal Care has been doing great. They met their goal in August. They had 53 people out of 50 people that they try to get to go to sanctuary work days. And now we're 2 days into the month, today September 2nd, and they already have 44 people out of their 50 people goal, which really helped a lot. And that happened because of the people that we met on campus doing outreach. So Animal Care continues to do great. And one thing that we have this month, that a lot of you probably heard, is the Occupy Whole Foods Week of Action, which means that we're going to be on the sidewalk at Whole Foods starting on Sunday, September 23rd from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and we're going to end on Saturday. And our goal for that action is to get 300 people out, especially on the last day. That's the day that we're trying to mobilize the most number of people. And we think that we can definitely hit that goal, which will help the Direct Action Committee hit the Q3 goals of 300 unique activists taking nonviolent direct action. So we would just need your help joining the Week of Action as many days as you can. And if you only can join one day, please do on Saturday, which is the last day. And also help us promote in social media, invite your friends, invite your family. We're going to have a lot of awesome events that are not just the typical protests. We're going to have community events and trainings. And maybe this will be a great opportunity to bring people who are not yet into animal rights activism. And as always, just try to find ways that you can help maybe bring somebody who comes to community events but doesn't come to protest. So like I said, maybe the Week of Action will be a great opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you, Tanya. And next we will hear from Wayne about the community committee. Sorry, can someone else, Louis, you're doing the mic running? Yeah, sorry. No, it's okay.
If I could just quickly follow on with what Tanya said before I jump into community committee stuff. I'm meeting with Sonoma County Ag on September 6th, this Thursday. The only reason they're meeting with me is because of the number of people we've gotten out to Sonoma County in the past. And the only way we're going to be able to have an effective conversation is if I can credibly say that hundreds of people will be out here again if we don't take action to stop the criminal animal cruelty happening in factory farms, if we're not transparent with the public about what's happening inside, and if we don't start giving activists the right to give aid to these sick and injured animals. So please, please come out to Occupy Whole Foods. It's really crucial for the course of the negotiations with Sonoma County. So most of what the community committee has been doing over the past month is twofold. One is doing a ton of recruiting for the start of the college semester, and at BCC and UC Berkeley, we're having tabling and outreach events. The second thing is we're kind of nailing down our new structure. And this diagram you have in front of you, which maybe, can we maximize that? Or can people see that okay as it is? There we go. This is our new structure, and we have some tentative leads for each of the different points on the structure. But our community has basically a three-part structure. We recruit people into the chapter, we sustain them and give them a sense of connection and community, and then we develop them to become the best people they can. We set out some goals pursuant to those 3 working groups, a point person for each of those working groups, and then some strategies we think will work to achieve those goals. And the main thing we've been doing over the past month is finalizing this structure and trying to get as many people on board these 3 working groups as we possibly can. So if you have an interest in recruiting, sustaining, or developing activists, please reach out to the people indicated on this diagram or to me. I'm tentatively taking point on the community committee, but my goal is to leave the community committee on November 1st. So the community committee is going to need more help, and frankly, I might be forced to leave by November 1st if I'm in prison. So anyways, we really need help in these 3 areas, and it's been one of our big gaps in organizing is having a good onboarding structure, and to have a good onboarding structure that really allows people to crawl, then walk, then run into their activism. We need more people supporting this work. So just to give you some numbers, we did have an incredible success in recruiting, and give big shout out to Anna, Jackie, Kitty, Rachel, and all the other folks who stepped up hugely to make this happen. But we had over 300 people at a puppies and vegan ice cream event. We expect to have a large number of people this Friday for a pizza and VR event. And a lot of these people are RSVPing to become activists. We had, from that puppies event, about 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 of the people committed to do something in the future as activists. We had 50 RSVPs and commitments afterwards. We're also launching circles, and many of you have now joined circles. If you have not joined a circle, please find one soon because they're amazing. And we had an awesome circle. Dean and I and Eva and a bunch of other folks made some burgers, had some delicious pasta, and chatted about the roadmap to animal liberation, chatted about the Liberation Pledge and some other things. It's an opportunity to get your voice heard in a way that you can't get your voice heard in a big meeting like this. And we think this is crucial, not just for our entire movement's growth, but frankly for our individual personal development, for us each to have a small group that supports and encourages us in our personal development. So 68 people so far have expressed interest in circles. Our goal by the end of the year is to have 250 people actively in circles. And to get there, we've got another, 170, 180 to go. So that's all I have to say about community, and should I just jump ahead to finance now? Okay. I'm tentatively leading up the finance committee until actually Tuesday when Priya gets back. But our goal at the beginning of the year is to raise $2 million. We have raised almost $1 million. The pace has slowed a little bit. I mean, our last chapter meeting was on August 12th. So, we raised about $20,000 between August 12th and today. But we also didn't really have an active fundraising campaign until now, and now we do. And our active fundraising campaign, again, is this member drive, where we have a matching fund of $100,000 of money that we could potentially gain for the animals. There are already 68 people who have taken up this offer, raising $6,800 for the animals, and increasing our monthly donation rate by about $1,500 a month, which is enough to almost pay the expenses. The expenses here are a little over $2,000. We're almost enough, just in our monthly donors recruited in the past couple of weeks, to cover the cost for the ARC. And obviously the ARC is just the beginning of what we're trying to achieve. So the main thing we're asking all of you to do is if you can give up the cost of a nice cup of coffee per month, which is about $5 a month, you can earn us $100, which is really, really valuable for us. It also shows to our major donors that we're building a grassroots fundraising pace. But even more than becoming a member yourself, which I'd encourage all of you to do if you have the financial discretion to do so, is ask your friends, your family members, your fellow actives if they know about this. And it's a very simple URL. It's just dxe.io/member. dxe.io/member. And we're hoping we can get to 1,000 by the end of September. And that's all.
Thanks, Wayne. So with that, we are going to move on to DxE values. So Wayne, you can take that away. This should be the beginning of the voting process.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to be thinking about this revision of our core values. And I just talked quite a bit, so I'm going to try and keep this short so we can dive right into the proposals and give the people who submitted them a chance to talk about why they submitted their proposals. But I wanted to just kind of review to everyone our original reasons, what our purpose was in trying to rewrite these proposals. And there were, I think, 3 big things. One is we felt our proposals were not specific enough to provide concrete guidance. that we had all these vague terms like truth and empathy and integrity that everyone sort of believes in, but no one really knew how they meant DxE activists as DxE activists should behave, right? And we believe in a lot of things very fiercely. We believe that when someone's violent to us, we don't respond to violence. We believe in being honest and straightforward with each other even when it's hard. And these are things that really spelled out in our values in a clear way. So we want more specific values. Second is a lot of people felt like the values were not sufficiently inspiring and memorable, that the values that we currently had, partly because there were such vague terms, no one could remember them. And I had an experience about 7 months ago where I was joining all the different working groups and asking them, who knows what our values are? And basically no one could name any of them. And values that are not remembered are not values that are worth having. So we want these to be memorable. And I think the third thing we set out for ourselves is we want our values probably to be more simple. So our values currently have, and this is partly why we're rewriting them, but we had, I think, I don't even remember the exact number. I think it was 6 principles and 5 values in our old list, or maybe 7, 5. See, I don't even remember, and I'm the lead organizer of the chapter. So there was a concern that there was just too many of them, and we wanted to shorten and clarify them. So specific, inspiring, and memorable, and more clear or simple so people can actually integrate them in their daily activism. So our process today is we have 3 great proposals before us, and we'll just go through them in order. And we're asking each person who submitted the proposal to speak for about 3 minutes. And I'm going to keep time just because I want to get to questions and conversation as quickly as possible. But we'll give each person who submitted a proposal about 3 minutes to talk about why they think their proposal is a good one. And then we'll open things up to conversation. I'll try and facilitate and encourage folks, especially if they have any sort of constructive feedback about the proposals. But the last thing I wanted to say before we go into this conversation is that as with everything in DxE, this is not permanent. So don't worry if the result of today's vote isn't exactly what you want. We can make non-material modifications to the values pursuant to our bylaws without going through a huge vote again. And we can always vote again in the future. I think this is an experiment in democracy. This is part of what makes DxE great, the fact that every single person in this room has a voice in this conversation, and we want to hear from all of you. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand this off to Rachel, who unfortunately Almira is not here, so she can't talk on behalf of her proposal in person, but she did make a little video from Sweden, which I think we're going to play in her stead. And this is proposal number 1. Did everyone get a list of the proposals? Okay. So this is proposal 1. Can we maximize that, please?
Yeah. Are you ready?
Hey everybody, I am not able to make the chapter meeting today. We're here in Sweden and time changes and stuff just don't work. But I wanted to give my thoughts on the core values because I can't be there. And I, first of all, think that everyone did like an awesome job drafting and thinking about these things. And the reason that I am in support or will be voting for the first proposal is because I think it addresses some of the concerns that we wanted to address with the rewrite of these values, which were that they were pretty vague and kind of not very descriptive and also not very memorable and nobody knew what they were. And so I think that the first proposal has a lot of detail that can guide us more clearly in our activism and in our community building than before, whereas before it just said like truth or something like that. Like, what does that even mean? This one has a lot more detail in the description that can really give people examples of what we're talking about when we say those values. And I think also does a good job of like distinguishing us from other animal rights organizations. Like, what does DxE do differently? And, you know, we're building purposeful communities, like communities who are trained to go and do actions, not just communities who are eating vegan food together, or we're fiercely nonviolent. And I just love that phrase. I did not come up with it, but you know, this idea that like nonviolence is so important, but we're doing it like with a lot of intensity and very action focused, as opposed to pacifism, which some people might confuse nonviolence for. And then I think it's also more memorable than what we had before. There's like 5 somewhat catchy phrases. Some are probably more catchy than others, but like 5 of them, which makes it a little bit easier to remember. And of course, people don't need to memorize the descriptions. Like, we can go to those when we need to, but things like we do our homework, I think, is pretty easy for people to remember, and it triggers like, what does that mean? It means that we actually want to look at evidence and see what we're doing is effective, something like that. So for that reason, I think that the first proposal is the strongest one, and I'm excited to see how all of this turns out. And thank you so much for listening to this.
Thank you, Elmira in Sweden. So we want to just open things up for conversation now, and I'll try and keep a rough stack and give people a chance to comment or ask questions about this proposal.
Paul can also keep stack.
Oh, Paul's keeping stack? Okay, go ahead, Paul. Are you going to keep stack or should I? Okay. Yes, so again, we're doing 3 minutes of presentation on each of them and 15 minutes of conversation. And at the end, we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes of trying to integrate, and then we vote. So we have about 75 minutes on this.
I don't know how. I feel like I'm not the best person because I can't actually access the. Okay.
Thank you. I really like proposal 1 because it does have a lot of detail, and I can see that even with each line that's here, I would like to work on putting links to how exactly to do those things, because in the homework section, I think that's just a beautiful thing, because there are people who have done in all these things successfully, and there's specific examples of how to do them. That's something I've been researching for like 43 years, and I would love to support that.
Jack and John and Zach. Yes, we are fiercely nonviolent. I have a suggestion, rather than fiercely, spelled a little differently, fervently. Fervently nonviolent seems more consistent to me.
Thanks, Jack. And just to be clear, to clarify, we're not making modifications to these proposals today. However, we can make non-material modifications after proposal is done. So if there's a proposal that has 1 or 2 words that you like to change, you can always ask the core to change it later, and as long as there's no objections, we can make small changes. But we're voting on the proposal as they're drafted here. We're not modifying them today.
Were you next? Yeah, sure. Hello. I like this one because it's pretty detailed as compared to the other ones, and I like the way it's laid out, the bolding of the important phrases here, and I think that kind of goes in line with what Patricia was saying, where like maybe the bolded phrases here could have like links and stuff, like a Wikipedia article. I always love Wikipedia articles because they're so useful. You can always jump around and find all the information. Sorry, I'm rambling. Okay, the second sentence here, though, in the mission, I've only really read the mission and the first value. We reject the speciesism that enables the mass torture and killing of non-human animals and the blatant disregard for their home, our planet, as well as extraction-based economies and oppressive institutions and ideologies that harm all animals. Yeah, I think it just needs a little bit of a grammatical work. It looks like they're saying that I'm just the hyphen there, the blatant disregard for our home, maybe. Yeah, it seems like they're saying all of these things come together to enable the mass torture and killing of animals, which is, yeah, I agree with all of these things that are kind of listed here are doing that. Although I am not a fan of the word speciesism, I would prefer something like the systems that enable the mass torture and killing of animals, and then go through the systems. And I'll stop there.
Cool, thank you. And we are going to seek diverse participation, so if you've spoken once, we'll probably defer to folks who have not spoken, but please go ahead. John?
My favorite part of all the proposals is we lead by serving. I think that's really important to emphasize.
Thank you, Diana.
Chase, right?
Yeah, Chase Lassa.
So I know that we're not talking about wording right now, but if anything...
You can talk about wording. Just to clarify, you
okay.
can talk about wording, we just can't change wording.
Oh, got
so if
it.
there's wording you don't like, We can't change wording before the vote. We can change it in non-material ways, like to change a word or two or grammatical errors later on, yeah.
Oh, okay. So if anything, I would change oppressive institutions because I work for a financial company, and just from the perspective of donors, they might think that they're being shamed for being a part of the banking system.
Yeah, thank you, Rasa.
Yeah.
Chase didn't want to talk.
So I guess that I have two primary issues with the first proposal. Mostly, I just think that it isn't incredibly easy to memorize and remember. I think that if this is what we went with, and then a month from now, Wayne came to protest and asked me to tell him what our values are, I wouldn't be able to do it, at least accurately enough. And I think that some of the language here is maybe a little bit too intense, so to speak. Like, it might be kind of inspiring for us, but I'm just kind of trying to put myself in the mindset of, like, just, you know, some vegan that lives in Berkeley somewhere that wants to join us, and they might kind of get a little turned off maybe by some of the wording here. It sounds a little like animal liberation is not a hobby, it's a social justice movement. Like that to me seems like it could be a little off-putting to newcomers. But those are my two primary issues with the first proposal.
Thank you, Rainey. And again, we do encourage people to offer these sorts of constructive disagreements. So if there's something you're concerned about, you know, we please air out those concerns openly so everyone can hear them and make an informed decision about which proposal they want to support. So thank you, Rainey.
I like having fun names that aren't just nonviolence, community, very simple things, but I'm not very sure about we do our homework because that sounds boring to me because I just finished doing my homework and I don't want to do it anymore for another 12 years. So I just wonder if other people have thoughts about that. I really appreciate the value, the way Almira explained it, and that, you know, we obviously want to do what is effective and what's working and put time into anything, but I think a lot of people don't put time into their homework because it's something really passionless for them. So I don't know about that. That just seems boring to me. And maybe goes along with what Rainey said in terms of, you know, putting new people off, like, oh, I'm coming to a group where I have to do homework. I don't know.
Thank you, Cassie. And we have about 6 minutes left, and again, we can wrap it up too at the end.
I would just encourage folks to think of the values as something that leads us internally, because I probably, when have a new interaction with an organization, I'm not kind of really deep into their mission, vision, and values. I'm more interested in when the events are and who I know there. So I would just kind of in response to Rainey's point, suggest that we think about this as something for us and not so much for the outside world.
At the last chapter meeting, we did talk about being able to kind of like explain our values to new people, and I think that is important when we're trying to communicate what we care about and how we try to build a safe community and an effective community and things like that to new people. I think, yeah, out of this, the things that I'm most likely to remember are the bold words, and lead by serving just isn't clear enough to me, I think, for what it's trying to convey. And then I also think that we do our homework and we do exceptional work for the animals is just not so much values to me as the work that we do and how we do that.
Thank you, Kat.
Yeah, I want to talk about some of those points. I think those are great points about maybe things being complicated or things turning other people off. I like to think of, remember, this is not just for this chapter, but this is for the network. And when a new chapter starts, there's chapters all around the world. And there are values that we have in the Bay Area that not every chapter has because they're not written into our values explicitly and because they're not built into a structure. So anything that's really important, we need to either have built into our structure, written into our values, or ideally both. So even if it turns some new people off, if we feel it's important for the way we actually act and carry out the world, then we need to have it in there. And now, ideally, the much more difficult thing to build is to build into our structure. And I know I'm going long, but I just want to mention for empowerment and emergent leadership, that like we need to have like our structure being empowering, because if like Rainey or Kat, if you're empowered because I tell you you have this leadership position now, then it came from me, that's not real empowerment. Real empowerment means you have the capacity to find a problem and do something about it yourself, which anyone here can start a working group if you find a few other people who are like, yeah, I agree with you, we should work on that. It's like, Kat, you started the music working group, right? Did you need anyone's permission for that? No. Maybe you got permission, or maybe you got encouragement, but you don't need anyone's permission for that. So just remember that like we need to build these things into our structures, and this is a really complicated problem. You know what, I'm gonna talk for 2 hours if you let me, so I'm gonna stop.
Thank you, Chris.
I really like the third one the most because it's just one of those things where...
We're going to talk about the third one in a bit.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to go proposal by proposal, just comment on the first one, and then we'll talk about all of them at the end.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Cassie about the do your homework thing. I really don't like that. But yeah, the purposeful community thing, yeah, it's very detailed, and I'm really aligned with that. So, I guess.
Cool. Thank you, Amin.
You had me in the stack too.
We're going to have to go quickly because we have 2 minutes left. So 30 seconds each.
Yeah, I'll just say really quickly, I think that the explanations are a little bit too long, and I think it's kind of somewhere in between a short explanation and like a longer article. And I think that if there was like a one-sentence thing that maybe didn't use so much flashy language, and then a link to a longer explanation, that would really help me to understand them.
So I have two quick comments. One is when it says do your homework, I'm not a big fan of that either. And I think we do research and adapt to change maybe better. That essentially conveys what it is. And then I would like to put we do exceptional work for the animals further up in the list, because we are an animal rights organization, and if that's what we are saying last, then that itself speaks volumes. And then if we put this in the first, then the following points can elaborate how we are going to do exceptional work for the animals. Thank you.
Maybe just instead of we do our homework, something like we learn from other social justice movements, etc.
Okay, and then I think Sharon's going to have the last comment on this one. We'll move to the second proposal.
So really appreciated the context that Elmira gave. Just by hearing that, I felt a lot differently about this proposal than I had initially. But then I thought, so for instance, some of the language is far too intense for my personal liking, but now, like hearing her explain it, it made so much more sense, like fiercely nonviolent, and sort of using that language as one, as a way to remember it, and two, as a way to, I guess, break through the feeling of that it could be passive. In any case, I'd say because we have that context and people who are reading this don't, then I still feel like it's a bit too intense for, I think, you know, in my opinion, for other people, because the context was helpful for me, but before I read that, I'd say that I was turned off to this proposal.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Sharon. Let's move on to core proposal number 2. And Kat, you have 3 minutes to talk about the proposal you submitted. Can someone give Kat a mic?
So this was just my attempt right after the last chapter meeting. I was really inspired by the small groups that we were in to create something as short and sweet as possible. I personally find that important. I would personally like to be able to more or less regurgitate our values to new people, and I think these are the most important things. And I went through a list of the list of necessary content before I made this, and I really felt like I included all or very nearly all of it in there. I think truth was an important part that was kind of maybe left out of the first one, and possibly the third one. And then I really tried to just use as many keywords as possible that we really cared about. I care less about kind of catchy or interesting way to phrase things and more about just strictly what the values and principles are. And I agree that we could like add a longer explanation and a link somewhere else. So for instance, under the community building, there's kind of all the core things that I think we think about when we're trying to operate within our community and create a safe space for everybody. That's really it. It's not a very complicated thing, and the mission statement I think is clear enough that we're doing our best to do exceptional work for the animals and things like that with such a bold vision, which is why I included the roadmap.
Awesome. Thank you, Kat. So we have 15 minutes for folks to share any questions, thoughts, concerns about this proposal.
I just forgot to say, I think I edited this and Wayne fixed it on the online document that you can look at, but it probably didn't make it to the printing. Under truth, instead of with a focus on individual storytelling, I changed that to with a focus on the animal's perspective.
Yeah, so it's on the document up here, but it's not on your printed copy because the printed copy was made earlier.
Yeah. I really like that this proposal is short because I feel like the other one was too long for people to really remember. But I think one thing that's missing from this proposal is having a value that talks about the animal's perspective, which I think is something that's really important, especially that's the main thing that we're doing. And I see that there's a mission statement, which is great, but I would like to see added something that was just about, kind of like what the other one said, we do exceptional work for animals, but like worded smaller. And maybe that would be too many values, but I think that's the thing that I think is missing on this proposal. But thanks, Kat. That's really, I like it.
Did you hear Kat's point about it? Is that in the beginning, at the end now? It's highlighted right there.
It still says truth.
Right,
it doesn't say animal's perspective as a title.
Thank you, Tanya. Any other thoughts or comments on this proposal?
Hello. Oh yeah, sorry. I like this one a lot. I like it that it's simple, and I like the 5 values they seem very good. I like yeah, and then maybe some of the sentences under the values I would have like some minor wording issues with. And the mission, I like that she specified that it's ever-evolving 40-year roadmap. I think that's really important, that we're like always making sure to be emergent and evolving. But I think the mission could maybe use one more sentence, like something specific, because it says we're going to achieve revolutionary change in one generation. You know, what does that mean? You know, I would write like rights for animals to, you know, to have shelter and have a peaceful life and have the resources that they need to live a good life. And okay.
Thanks, Zach. Any other thoughts?
I also appreciate how concise this one is. A few things that I'm thinking about are, one, in regards to truth, I think I feel like there's a disconnect between what the value is and then the short description. I think like I wouldn't have necessarily thought of that sentence when I saw truth. I think as people have already said, truth is kind of, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, and so maybe another way to phrase that so it's a bit more clear. And also truth, I think if truth is going to be one of our values, then it could be worded in a way that kind of encourages us that truth is, I don't know, to be open to other, like, others' perspectives, like that your truth, like everyone has kind of their own truth, but they're like, I don't know. This is like, I feel like you could go down a rabbit hole with this, but other pieces of feedback. I think to respond to Zach's point in regards to the mission statement, I think I really like that sentence. I think I like that it says social and political change for animals, and that we don't have to like spell out the exact what that means in that statement. That could be a longer thing that someone could look at. And the last thing in regards to nonviolence, I think not just nonviolent direct action, but I think like that's different than nonviolence. So to make that more clear in the description, that we're not just about nonviolence as a tactic, but also as a philosophy. So.
Anyone who hasn't gotten a chance to speak, especially voting organizers?
Corey hit on a lot of the points I was going to say, and but just to say that I think this is a great proposal, and the brevity is good, and I think there have been comments about embellishing it with more information, which I think again takes away from the advantage of having it brief, and also there's a lot of things that people want to add that are either in a lot of our meetings and a lot of our discussions, they're in other documents. I think that having a core proposal should be high level, in my opinion anyway. So, and like we all say and we all want to be able to remember them. So.
Anyone who hasn't spoken yet, especially voting organizers, so otherwise we'll go back to the folks who have already spoken. Jack?
Yep. I like strong action statements of values, and ones that I can remember. And I can't remember sentences as long as 10 or 12 words, 5 of them. The length of the statements in Proposal 1, I can remember. You know, we do our homework. And I think it's the fact that there's longer explanations is less important than there are something that we can remember. So that causes me to be interested in value statements that are shorter in terms of the action statement than in Proposal 2. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
I'm a little confused as to how the mission statement is also being voted on, because a mission statement is different from values, and so for someone, so that's just what I would say. It'd be better if we voted on values and then mission statement is separate.
Thank you. You want to say something? Yeah, sure, take it. Actually, let's just make sure, does anyone else have any questions who hasn't gotten a chance to speak? So especially organizers, Leslie, Rachel, Jake, John, if you guys have a perspective, it'd be good to share it. Leslie? Yeah, we want to use the mic for everybody.
Okay. I appreciate the brevity and conciseness of it, and it's easy to remember, and it's also, I think, perhaps more universal than the first one, and I don't see that we'd have a lot of disputes and arguments on any of these things. So I really appreciate your work.
I see Matthew and Alicia in the back too. John? John hasn't said anything. John?
I just have one question on the order in which they are. Because we have truth at the bottom, but it seems to me that the most important thing that we have out of everything is the truth. It's number one. Simply the truth is our best weapon that we have for this. So for me, it's number one.
Again, anyone who hasn't spoken yet, want to chime in? Really encourage you guys to speak if you haven't gotten a chance to speak. Dean, go ahead. Dean and then Paul, and then maybe back to Kat, if no one else wants to speak.
I definitely hear I think truth is super important. Something that I like comparing this one to the first proposal is I think the first proposal kind of has truth built into it, specifically into the mission statement rather than in the values below it. So when it talks about speciesism, it's talking about what our perspective on truth is, and that's something I appreciate about the first proposal. And that's why, in the interest of conciseness, I would actually omit truth from Proposal 2 and opt to put it in the mission statement in Proposal 2.
And what will probably happen is this: we have a vote today, we have a vote on the 9th, and then we'll probably finalize a single proposal that's passed these votes, and if there are final edits that need to be made, we'll have a team that comes together and make those edits at that point, after September 9th. Paul, go ahead.
Just going to add, I think people making points about the orders and some of the wording, just a reminder, like that would also count as immaterial. So we could reorder things as long as like those general things are really there. And so with that in mind, I like 2 because I feel like with some tweaks, with some adjustments and stuff like that, it could be really good. I like 1 also. I'll wait to hear more about 3. I like 3 as a list of tactics, less than I like it as a list of values. That's all.
Okay, anyone else who hasn't gotten a chance to speak? Anyone who hasn't gotten a chance to speak? Alicia, go ahead.
I think I'm just like kind of going to say what like Tanya said. I do like this, but I just feel like the animals are missing from it. So.
Thanks, Alicia. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left, so we'll go to Chris, and then Kat, you can say something at the end.
Just a comment on people favoring brevity and just like, again, like, if a value is important, like I think we should have it in there, you know, and so I would say I would prefer more values listed, not fewer. Just if it's actually important. If it's not important, then we don't list it, and if it is important, that we do. That's all.
Okay. Any final comments? Otherwise, I'll go back to Kat and then probably. Oh, Amin's got one final comment.
Yeah, I think the only thing is the mission should definitely be more specific as Proposal 1 with, you know, let's remove the mass torture and killing of non-human animals.
Thanks. Kat?
Paul's comment more or less took away the need I felt to talk about this. I was just kind of wishing that I, had been able to receive a lot of this feedback before actually submitting. This is the first time, this proposal has been up here. But yeah, I do agree with the ordering. I really liked Corey's and Tanya's points. Just kind of the fact that truth is like, well, what does that mean? That value to me could be replaced by like the animal's perspective itself, and that could be like number 1, something like that. I would really appreciate being able to like tailor it more to this conversation.
Great. We have 3 minutes left, and looks like Dean wants to say something else too.
So I would vote in favor of 1 over 2 over the truth issue, because I think when we're talking about values, I think it's important that we understand what our values are and what our values are not. And values in a certain way differentiate us from other networks and organizations. Truth, I think, is kind of presupposed in being an organization, because every activist organization says, like, we believe in something and we're fighting for it. So that's why I think truth is best in the mission statement rather than as a value. And for that reason, I would vote for the first proposal, because I think that's a material change to state something as a mission statement rather than as a value.
I personally support lies, but I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No one spread that on the internet. There are enough rumors about me on the internet. I was just kidding. I think this might be recorded. This might be. Oh no, it's not being recorded. It's being live streamed to other people, I should say. But in theory, if anyone's listening to the live stream, you're not allowed to record this, and in particular, you could not record that last statement. All right, let's go on. Kat, and then we should move on to the next proposal, I think.
Yeah, truth was just kind of something that I pulled directly from the necessary content thing. It's a word that we've thrown around a lot in DxE. Well, not thrown around, but talked about a lot. So a lot of this was just kind of like, okay, what do we care a lot about? What do we talk a lot about? But I did think of that kind of, and I was like, yeah, I don't think it even necessarily needs to be in the mission statement for that reason. And I really think the animal's perspective should probably be a value. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Kat. Let's move on to proposal number 3. And Michael, do you want to talk about your submission? Can we? I think we've got a PowerPoint for Michael. Yeah. You can click on slideshow and then present. There we go. There we go. Give him a mic, please.
I want to thank everyone who wrote or worked on the core value proposals. And I want to thank Wayne for his commitment and focus on getting our core values articulated in writing. I want to thank all of you for caring so much about these values. My goal with this proposal, which I wrote following last chapter meeting when we discussed the original proposals, was to state the most important of DxE's values in a clear, concise, easy to understand way so that new people who are curious about DxE can quickly get a sense of our values. And I think we want to grow our movement. We don't want these values just for the people in this room. They shouldn't be written for the people in this room. They should be written for the people in this room and hundreds of thousands of people who are going to come to join us. And so, if someone walks in here and they want to know kind of what is DxE about, then this value statement should be something easy that they can buy into. But that states our values, but it's not off-putting to them. And while we care about many social justice issues, we're an animal rights organization. And the written list of our values that will appear on the website, I think, should be limited to values related to the work we do on behalf of animals. And it's not that we don't all care about a lot of social justice movements, and we care about ending sexism and ending racism, and so many other things. But for our core values, it should be focused, I think, on the animals and what we're doing for the animals. It's important that the words we use to express our values are not going to scare people away from taking the time to learn about DxE and our work on behalf of non-human animals. Listing our values is important as a reminder of the values behind the work we do for animals, but is equally important because it allows those not yet in DxE to understand where we are coming from. I've done my best to avoid insider jargon, but I've used some key language that I think is essential to who we are, such as open rescue, which I have defined. Other key language includes nonviolent direct action, which I think is absolutely a core of what we're about, and then ending speciesism, which I've also defined. I just want to read through these quickly. Animal liberation. We are creating a world without speciesism, a world where non-human animals are not exploited or treated as lesser beings than humans. Nonviolent direct action. We use nonviolent direct action to achieve our goal of animal liberation.
Michael, I'm going to interrupt you because your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and we want to give people a chance to comment on them. And ideally, everyone's already read these beforehand, because we sent these out actually multiple times over the past couple weeks. So if you have a little more time, we'll give you the rest of the time. But let's give people time to comment, if that's okay, for 15 minutes.
Sure. No, that's fine.
Okay. So any comments? Can we bring a mic to Diane?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's ever really possible to have a world without speciesism. I think that to some extent, people are going to value, say, a pig's life over an ant's life. And so I don't know if we're ever completely without speciesism, so I don't know if that's the right term to use, maybe to strive to reject speciesism in our life or something to that effect.
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah, so I like a lot of this. I think it could be condensed. So principle number 2 of nonviolent direct action and then number 4 of challenging systems of violence can be combined into one. And then inclusive community and respectful disagreement can be combined into one as well. So that kind of thing.
Thank you, Chase. Leslie? Or I'm sorry, it looks like Amin first, then Leslie.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely like this one the most because if somebody were to ask me what our values were, I would just list these things. And then I don't know, I would explain them myself.
Thank you. And then
Yeah, I agree. I think that I like this the best because it is clear, and it would give new people a real clue as to what we're about very quickly. And I think that that is an issue with DxE, is because, you know, we're not instantly easy to understand. Yeah. And I think that this has more potential to bringing people in and getting them up to speed more quickly.
Great, thank you, Leslie. Let's go to Anna next, and I'm going to keep encouraging other folks who haven't spoken, like Anna. So I'm looking at you, Rachel, Jake, especially our voting organizers. Offer up your perspectives before the end of the day if we can. I'm going to challenge you to do that. Anna, go ahead.
Yeah, I do like this proposal a lot. I do think that the language is not like off-putting or anything like that. Just one thing that I think open rescue, I don't know if that's really a value. Maybe the name of the value could be changed. But I think that's more of a tactic that we use. But other than that, I do really like this one a lot. And I do kind of agree with Chase that maybe some of them could be condensed to make it a little smaller and easier to remember.
Thank you, Anna. Anyone else, especially folks who haven't gotten a chance to speak?
I do think some of these are too specific to be values. Like Anna just said with open rescue, that's a tactic that, I mean, frankly, could change depending on the circumstances we find ourselves in coming decades. Also, respectful disagreement is more of a norm than a value. It's something that can definitely be under nonviolence easily.
Thanks, Eva.
Yeah, so I'm just going to comment on something you said, but isn't necessarily listed in this. You said that we need to be focused on non-human liberation and not other social justice issues like racism, sexism. And while we are obviously an animal-focused organization, I don't really see how we can be an inclusive community if we have racists and misogynists in the community. So I don't know if that's what you were trying to... Okay.
No, I wasn't saying that we all care about and are trying our best to change all of those things in this world the best we can. But DxE is an animal rights organization. And so I think that the values that we list should be focused on our work for animals. Just because otherwise, frankly, if we start putting other things into our values, in our list of values, it'll be a big list and a long, complex list, and I don't think that's what we want. So it's not that I or other, I mean, I assume everyone wants to like end racism. I mean, everyone here certainly, and but you know, if we put that in this list of values, well, we also have to put end sexism. We also have to put gender equality. We also, and so maybe we, you know, maybe we want to put all those things in, but I didn't get the idea that we did. So I was basically working off of what we, you know, basically what the proposals that had been made before, and what the Corps had said that they wanted to have included, you know, in our values.
I'm going to stop for a moment and just ask folks who haven't spoken yet, especially voting organizers. I'm looking at Jake, Rachel, John, Kitty. If any of you have any thoughts you want to share, this is, you know, these are our values and your values. Kitty wants to share something. Lewis?
Your mic is way closer.
Yeah, we should just keep this mic on me, I think, just so I can continue facilitating.
I don't think you need to repeat that anymore. I think we get it. On the last one, I think a lot of them, and I just mentioned this last time when we looked over, that they could be combined, and I think we should just have like 3 or 4, because like there's no point in having values if we're not going to remember them, and like we're not going to if there's this many. But I think like nonviolent direct action should include challenging systems of violence and open rescue. Inclusive community should include respectful disagreement. Emergent leadership should include open to change, etc.
Thanks, Kitty.
In response to what Rainey said and what you also said, Michael, I agree. I think like we can't just list off all of these other things and say this is important to us, this is important to us, you know, but I think we, as Chris has said, like we need to explicitly state somewhere or like make it known if something is important to us as a community, like it should be in our structures or in our values, ideally both, and to say something like we all care about racism, we all care about ending these things. I think like we should like I don't we should, if we're not like explicitly saying that those things, like we want to do something that will ensure that the communities that we are creating are welcoming for people, and we are focused on non-human animals, but like we all are animals too. So like if we are in our fighting for non-human liberation, we're also fighting for our own. So I don't know, like I think there's maybe under nonviolence there could be a way of like communicating what we're talking about. I don't know.
Thank you, Corey.
So we could put everything under nonviolence. So I don't know when we say that, like everything. There's literally nothing. If we do something and we can't put it under nonviolence, we probably shouldn't be doing that. But so we could just have one value, nonviolence, and then require everyone to study that for years. But I'll say that like, yeah, maybe it's just, as we care about other social justice issues, whatever. But I think in terms of this chapter, from when we started DxE, anti-colonialism was always a big part of our decision making, where we think about protesting, how we treat people in our community, and stuff like that. And it was never explicitly stated. So some chapters are good on this, and other chapters are not. And so remember, think about this not just as for this chapter, but think about it for a network. And so when we think about this as a network, and a lot of people don't agree with like anti-colonialist values or other things that then that's an important thing to like build into our system. And so, and I don't know how to build it in outside of listing it as a value. And sorry to say, like in terms of like bankers and stuff like that, like, hey, I love the people who are in that system, but I don't think, since we are probably going to need to challenge those systems, we should not be reliant on those systems.
Thanks, Chris.
Can I ask a quick clarification on this? Would it be immaterial to loop a couple things into each other so this ends up being 6 or something after it's approved, if it was?
Materiality will be determined by the core.
Okay.
Whether it's 3 out of the 5 members of the core think it's too material, and secondarily by any objections. So if there's a modification that someone feels like is a material modification, and they don't agree with the changes that have been made, they can petition the core and say, even if you don't think that's material, I think that's material.
Thanks for that good response. I'm going to move forward assuming then that there's a good chance that we can leave some stuff together. Just as a quick point, I don't think the other ones really elaborate. I think the whole discussion is a little bit irrelevant because the other ones don't dive into that stuff either. But what is good is we do have code of conduct, which is a big, long doc that allows us to really cover all those things and does, and maybe could be done better, and we can look at reviewing that ongoing too. So I didn't like this one at first because I felt tactic-y and less value-y, but if we can immaterially make it a little more value-y with some changes, then I'd probably be supportive too. I like all these, honestly. They're all pretty good. This Cat's one reminds me of our initial values when I joined. It was like 6 values at that point that seemed like hers. It was 5, sorry.
5 values.
Maybe 6.
All right, Chase?
So I don't know if we want to have maybe one document that's values and one document that's tactics, or kind of merge them eloquently together into one document somehow.
Thank you. Thanks, Chase. Sharon, Miriam, Dean, go ahead. I'm just wondering if anyone else has. Go ahead.
I think a huge criteria in our voting is the degree to which, or how close these proposals are to the ideal proposal we all have in our heads, and that means the fewest number of immaterial changes possible. And I think that I really appreciate all of these. I think they're all wonderful. I really appreciate the specificity in proposal number 3. But I think it would require a lot, pretty much a lot, if not all of these goals are included either in the direct bolded values in proposal 1 or listed in their descriptions. And therefore, it would require fewer immaterial changes to the proposals in value 1 to achieve the same goals in proposal number 3.
Thank you, Dean. Anyone else want to chime in?
So this is kind of a comment just on all 3 proposals, kind of following the discussion that Michael, Chris, Corey, and I were having. I don't see how it would be contrary to DxE's values to say, for one of them to say, we are all animals. You know, that would, I think, kind of cover a lot of the issues we were talking about while still kind of, you know, making it animal-centric in a way, or non-human-centric to be more accurate.
Thanks, Rainey.
Maybe it could be included in there. Did you have something?
And as for simplifying values and thinking about even a single value, just to think about this, to love everyone.
I like it. Yeah, let's bump her to the top. Can she talk? Yeah, Priya, we're talking about proposal number 3 right now, just so you know. I don't know how much you've heard.
We miss you all, and we'll see you very soon. So we might have to leave soon, so I wanted to comment on all 3 proposals. Is that okay?
Yeah, if you have to leave later, then you can comment on all 3. Is that okay with everyone? Yeah, just we'll go out of struck. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so one of the, I've obviously been in DxE for a long time, and one of the things that I remember is from our values, and some of these really resemble the first ever values that we had, including number 2 and number 3. And for that reason, I think number 1 really inspired me when I first read it, especially the language like we're fiercely nonviolent, we build purposeful communities. I really appreciate everyone's feedback today about how it could be shortened and about some of the language which might be really intense. And I think all those things can definitely be changed to make this proposal as perfect as we possibly can. And I also think we can integrate some of the pieces from the other 2 proposals in number 1. And when I look at this, it really kind of reminds me why we started to question our values and review them, because we wanted to make them punchier, we wanted to make them memorable. And I know research has shown that even if people don't necessarily like things, it's not really relevant. So if we may not like we do our homework, but I think at this point most people would probably agree that it's one of the most memorable ones. Because when I heard it, I was like, that's kind of weird, but it's also quite memorable. So I just thought that the first one really gives me like joy and excitement to look at, and I think it's I think with people's feedback that they gave today, we can make it as close to perfect as possible, even integrating some of the pieces from the other 2 proposals.
Okay, thank you, Priya. And I'm adding another 2 minutes to talk about proposal number 3. We are out of time, but I'm adding another 2 minutes because that was mostly about proposal number 1. So if anyone has any comments on proposal number 3, and then we're going to jump to kind of a conversation about all the proposals for about 15 minutes, and then give us 5 minutes to think and vote. Any of the last comments about proposal number 3 specifically?
Love all animals.
Even better. Even more clear. Okay, no other thoughts on proposal number 3? Okay, so now I think we should open up the conversation on just comparisons between the proposals. If you have any thoughts about strengths or weaknesses between proposals, integrations between the proposals you think would work, just to help people flesh out which proposal they think is the best model for us to work off for at least the foreseeable future. But again, don't worry if the proposals aren't perfect, because as with everything in DxE, we evolve. But any comments or questions about that? And I'll probably comment at some point, but yeah, please.
Data on what the, did we float all of these to international organizers yet?
We did.
Are we allowed to know if there was a strong preference? Because I'm honestly, at this point, inclined to be supportive of that, frankly.
Yeah, the international does anyone object to me sharing?
I think it's good to have a wider group of input, yeah.
I won't share all the details, but the international, does anyone object? I'm not going to share any individual feedback, but the summary I think is, I don't think we said we were going to keep it confidential. And we did share.
Because it might bias us, or what's the concern? Yeah, why are you asking us?
I'm asking just, first of all, I'm under the assumption that I think the international organizers will be happy.
I think their feedback is valuable. I'm wondering why you're asking us if we want to hear
We might, I mean, I could imagine one of the submitters thinking it's biased, that hearing that the international organizers voted in one direction might make people think, oh, you know, we have to vote in that direction, which is not the case, because the international organizers have not had the sort of conversations we've had. So.
Yeah. Yeah, if people don't object, I would be careful not to let us bias you, because they are like us, but even more sometimes. Like, I wish we had a set of data of like what people aren't involved would think about this, frankly. But yeah, so with that said.
Are there any objections?
They're only getting a up or down. They're not going to have this conversation. They're going to get vote of confidence.
We'll have opportunities from the comment. Yeah, I mean, both on Facebook and probably in a conference call if they'd like. So, Chris, you think we shouldn't? Okay, Kat?
It got pretty edited. My proposal got pretty edited afterward. I don't know if that really matters. I know what the results were, but I also know that it was like a pretty different vote. They voted on like 6 or 7 at the time as well.
They voted on, I think it was 5, and then 2 of them were withdrawn after the vote. I withdrew mine, actually, because mine didn't do that well, which is great. You know, I'm amazed that these people like Michael and Kat and Elmira have put together proposals that got more support from the International Network than what I, as one of the co-founders and lead organizer, which shows you again the beauty of the masses, the beauty of creative thinking in a large number of people.
Yeah, I guess I don't mind either way. I don't think it's extremely relevant to our conversation.
I think we should not talk about it too much. My inclination is just to say not disclose it, just in case somebody feels like, you know, unless anyone feels strongly that we should disclose it.
Is this a response to this conversation? Yeah,
I think even if we say it shouldn't bias us, it will. So I will also lean towards not disclosing because it'll bias people.
Okay. I won't disclose it, unless someone feels strongly we need to know that information.
Let's get an argument going.
Okay, so let's just comment about between the proposals we have about until 1:05, that's 13 minutes, and then we're going to take 5 minutes for people to just like sit around, process for a little bit, and then, you know, all the voting organizers will get a chance to vote right before the break. That's not one of the options, unfortunately, so I think we would have had to put it on the ballot before, but we could always consider it later, though, Chris. Yeah, Cassie, go ahead.
I think that emergent leadership is one of the values on here that personally inspires me the most, because it's one that I've personally been inspired by being given opportunities as an 18-year-old and 19-year-old. And I like that it's included in all of them in some way, but I do prefer it being stated as emergent leadership rather than we lead by serving. And my main reason for that is because I think emergent leadership sounds like something applicable to any person, because that's the epitome of what it is. Anyone can walk in the door and become a leader, whereas we lead by serving sounds like it's about our leadership. And I think it even says in there, like, our leadership team is first in line when a sacrifice is necessary, which is great, but I don't find that inspiring if I was a new person, because it's not even about me. It's like, okay, leadership's gonna serve me. Yay.
All right. Any other comments about differences between the proposals and how you're feeling? I'm not in the stack yet. I want to add myself to the stack at some point. Oh, I'm controlling the stack, I think. Sorry.
Do you have an actual stack, or is there like?
Oh, yeah, I should probably write it down.
Isn't it a queue? The stack is what they call it in social justice circles. It's a queue, though. Well, let's go ahead.
So I just really feel like number one is, I feel like the main sentence, each main value sentence is vague, and then the explanation of it is really bulky and hard to read, and I don't even want to read it. It's, you know what I mean? And like a lot of people might feel that way. So that's kind of why I'm leaning towards the other two.
Thank you, Chase.
If I could throw myself into.
I think Leslie was next, then
okay.
you.
Yeah, I like we're fiercely nonviolent, we do our homework, we build purposeful communities. I really like that. And we lead by exceptional work. I like the language in it because I think it is powerful and inspiring. However, I think that it's like it's a conundrum. It's inspiring, I think, if you've been around for a while and you really understand DxE, whereas Katz and Michael's are more accessible to people who have not been in direct action everywhere.
I'll add myself to the stack after Lewis.
So kind of what Chase was saying, I really like the flashy, like bold language in the first one, like the actual values themselves, but I think that they don't actually explain what they mean, and then the explanations are too long. So I would do something like the values of the first one and the sentences, the explanations of the second one, plus a longer, like maybe article about each value. But I think that like with a really flashy value that's really easy to remember, but then there's this really long explanation that nobody really can comprehend, I don't think that does the job. But I do like the really memorable values.
I'll add myself to the stack, and I think the great conversations today, this is like last chapter meeting, is helping us refine our thinking. And just two observations I want to make is, one is that most core values kind of in practice matter to a group internally rather than externally. So I think our core values are a little bit different from a policy statement or position statement. And as a member of leadership, what I find most valuable and important about our core values is, does it help me guide the organizers I'm working with? And I think that Proposal 1 very clearly is oriented around this. I agree completely it's too long. My submission was shorter. But I like the punchiness, and I also like that it's unique, and that's my second point, that a lot of the most memorable values in organizations and movements have not actually been very clear up front. They're just memorable, and what's clear is what comes after that. You know, so probably the most famous one that I always remember, and I've said this before, is Cupcake by Dropbox. Cupcake means nothing to anybody, but it's really memorable. It's like, cupcake, what does that mean? And then you read the statement, it's like, we do hard work, we have a little fun too. And it's like, oh, yeah, this is an organization where they care about fun. That's a core value. And so similarly, I think things like everybody does their homework, we do our homework, that we're an extremely thoughtful group, we're analytic, we're strategic, we do social scientific research. We literally are working with Columbia and Stanford scholars to figure out how to be as effective as we possibly can. That's not a bad thing. So I think 2 and 3 would be great as like policy statements of some sort, and I think they are better for new people. But for me as a member of leadership, 1 would be the most effective for me in actually guiding our members and our organizers to be the best they can be. But they are different objectives, I agree with that. And I think the feedback we've gotten about the language is too strong. I personally don't like the fiercely after hearing Sharon's feedback from last chapter meeting, and I'd love for us to change that if we can to something like bravely or something a little less aggressive. And similarly, the language about like don't gossip, sacrifice, I think we should take some of the stronger language out of that. But if we take that strong language out, simplify it a little bit, I think it's got what we need internally to make sure our culture is strong. And I think that's the most important thing about our core values. So while I like them all, I'll probably be voting for 1.
I know this isn't in anything, but one of the things I love about everybody here is the humility that everybody has. And I don't know if that word can be interjected in somewhere in these values, but I think that's key because we're all so humble and devoted, and it's not about us. And if we could just put that in there somehow, some way.
Thanks, John. We got Patricia.
I think the main thing that's missing from all these values more explicitly is that we become individuals that are really just whole, that we address every part of ourselves, spiritual, mental, physical, emotional. And I think that my experience in the last 3 weeks has been that I realized that I still have deep wounds from my past experiences going all the way to childhood. And that if this could be more explicit, because, you know, vegans are very sensitive and empathic, and a lot of wounded people come into our community, and we need to look at them as whole people with some strengths and some weaknesses, and if we could address the whole person, and I would just really appreciate that.
Thank you, Patricia. Okay, any final comments? Almira has a comment? Yep. Can we hear you, Almira?
Hey everybody. Yeah, of the values is just like one thing. And the first one is the idea is definitely not that anybody has to memorize the descriptions. The short phrases are like triggers for longer conversations. So I think kind of like what Priya said, like it or not, you probably already remember the phrase fiercely nonviolent. You probably remember do our homework, those sorts of things. Whereas I think in the other ones, they are essentially just exactly what we had before, with a few iterations that led people to not remember what they were, and then because of that, they can become less salient in our organization. I think we do need longer descriptions, like probably honestly longer than I even have myself, but maybe they don't need to be like listed up front at the beginning. But it's, you know, we do need to really spell out how these values are going we interact with the world and with each other. And then also I think these are things that we end up doing, whatever tactics we end up doing, we are always going to want to hold to these values. Our tactics will always be nonviolent. We will always want to use evidence. We will always want to be very dependable. Doesn't necessarily mean we'll be doing a disruption or open rescue, for example. So that's why I still think the first one is the strongest, and if you can imagine it without the long descriptions, do that in your head, because yeah, no one will memorize this.
Okay. Let's give Diana a chance to speak because she hasn't spoken too much, and then Kat, Chris, and then we really we'll close after that. So Diana, Kat, and Chris.
I do agree with what Almira just said, and the titles, which can be slightly changed or tweaked, are really easy to remember. And what she said about looking at, I mean, the titles, you know, they have a lot of power, and it would be really easy to remember them and then to explain them without having to read what she's written.
Kat and then Chris, just very briefly, because then we want to give some people time to think about them and reread the proposals before they vote. Kat.
Yeah, I think a combination of a lot of this would be best. I do like particularly just the punchiness of the wording in the first one, but I think that's something really easy to add to the other ones. I think if number one won out, I would want a lot to be kind of removed. I guess I'm really not a fan of the log explanations. I think if we can kind of memorize the shorter ones and just be able to talk to people that way, that'd be great. I don't think exceptional work for the animals should really be a value. I think that's clear enough in the mission statement, and I think the animals' perspective is pretty not represented, even with like all the wording.
Thanks, Kat. And then Chris, I think we'll have the last word briefly because we have to give people time to think and vote. Chris.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder, because I need it. I'll just talk about intensity. So who here watches our action videos and thinks they are intense sometimes? All right, so yeah, so we're kind of an intense organization. We also have a lot of fun. We also chill out and relax and like, you know, cool. But I just wanted to mention that in terms of the feedback of version 1 being intense, because like, yeah, it's an intense world, and we are doing some of the most intense work anyone can possibly do. And we have the most ambitious goal. We want to change the way every human on the planet thinks and the way every institution on the planet acts towards animals, and that's fucking intense.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris. So we have the next 7 minutes. Great way to end. Thank you, Chris. And we have the next 7 minutes. I'm going to suggest people keep it quiet in here. So people are voting organizers. If you're a voting organizer, you should have received a ballot. If you did not receive a ballot, please go to Rachel, and she'll make sure you receive a ballot. But let's keep the room quiet until 1:10, and then we're going to have about a 10-minute break, Rachel?
It should be 15. Hold on.
We have a 15-minute break. So it's going to be a long break, and that will give John and Jake plenty of time to count the votes. Okay, so where is the bucket, or where is the hat we're using? Okay, so we have a basket here, and John and pens here. So let's keep it quiet in here, unless you have a question about how to vote.
Can you just clarify, why do we have two papers?
Oh, I'm sorry. So you have 2 ballots. The reason you can only have 1 ballot, and John will make sure everyone only votes once, is because if we don't get a majority on the first vote, we're going to take the top 2 and vote again at the end of the chapter meeting. Does not matter which one you use. You can use either your ballots, and we will make sure you can only vote once. So if you put your ballot in twice, you only get one vote, so you've just lost your vote in the second round. Okay?
People who need pens, can you just come up to the middle and grab a pen?
So keep it quiet again. And John, if you could, do you want to grab the basket now? Yeah. And you and Jake, John and Jake will be accumulating all the votes, including the emailed votes, tabulating them in a spreadsheet, and we should get instant results about 25 minutes from now. Okay, so let's keep it quiet in here for the next 10 minutes or so people can read and think. Oh, I'm sorry. If you could just write very, very clearly and write not just, I would suggest not writing the number 1, 2, or 3, write the word 1, 2, or 3, if you can. You know, just because in the past we've had people scribble a number and it's very hard to tell. If we can't tell what your vote is, it just doesn't count. It's just thrown out. So don't have a broken chat or, you know, whatever it's called in a ballot. Make sure you write it out very clearly. Also, folks, please hold on to both your ballots. Again, can I remind you, please hold on to both of your ballots because you may need the second one, and you might want to remember your number. You might want to remember your number because later on we will give an anonymized list of numbers so you can verify that your vote was recorded accurately, just to ensure, you know, nothing got messed up on the spreadsheet or something like that. Okay, so hold on to your second ballot and remember your number. Hold on to your second ballot, remember your number. And write out the word 1, 2, or 3, ideally.
Oops. What did I just do? Ah! Okay. Yeah, I don't have Shimo or Shine on the first note. Oh, okay, that's fine. I think like people have to be in working groups and stuff because the fear is that like people with bad intentions could start like participating and then vote. Which
join a working group.
Which John?
John Cameron is not.
No. It's not that I don't like people.
Paul has asked me so many times to sign the organizer thing.
Who?
Paul,
Oh yeah, he's like Shimo's a keeper.
sign this. I'm like, no go.
Just so everyone knows, you have about 2 minutes left. One more minute if people want to start heading back to their seats, finishing their conversations. One more minute. Can you grab that Jake's charger, that white one? All right, it's 1:25. If people can please head back to their seats, we're going to get started. So John is going to announce the voting results. John? John, are you ready?
Okay, yeah, I'm just going to say it. Cool. Hey, everyone. Hi. So proposal number 1 won decisively. It got, yeah, I'm just saying the numbers. Yeah, 18.
Oh, no, you don't.
What's that? Well, it got 66% of the vote. So a super. Yeah, no, it's you can see it. So.
Yeah, it's linked in the agenda if you want to look at it later.
Yeah. Cool. That's all I got.
So the result is there's over a majority, in fact, a supermajority, I think, in the first round, so there's no need for a second round vote. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And we still have to go to the International Network on September 9th to vote confidence, so they'll probably get maybe the same options. If anyone wants to drop a proposal, that's fine too. And then there'll be a team that comes together that tries to refine it, that just crystallizes some of the feedback we received, making some immaterial modifications. If anyone objects to those modifications, obviously we voted for this proposal, so you can't rewrite the entire thing. But if you get a chance to be a part of a group that's refining some language, because I think there was some really helpful feedback from this team and from my staff. But thank you all very much. It was great job. Good job.
All right, and we're going to move right along, and Anna's going to give us an update on the September theme and narrative, as well as some Amazon updates.
All right. So we're going to start by talking about the August Day of Action, which was a massive outreach event on Cal campus, where we did a creative demonstration featuring the creeper, which Paul came up with. And it was a very successful event. We had a lot of really great conversations with a lot of students, and we passed out a lot of flyers and invited a lot of people to the puppy and vegan ice cream event, which had a really high attendance. In the attendance in the database, it says about 300 people. I don't think that's quite accurate. I think there was more like 150 people here maybe. But either way, there was still a lot of new people coming into ARC and agreeing to sign up for other actions like going to sanctuaries or coming to demonstrations or coming to a training event that's happening next weekend. And we're reaching out to all of them personally and inviting them to the action. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that did come out and do outreach that day on campus. So thank you guys very much. And something that's really cool is that we've actually seen some other chapters like do a very similar outreach style event in Salt Lake City. I believe they just did one this last weekend where they did the creeper boxes and did outreach on that, and that was really great. And the puppies event, I think, was really successful. We had a lot of new people in here, and we had a great talk about how they could get more involved in activism, and then we broke into small groups and talked individually with them and got commitments from a lot of people to come to future events. And the third quarter we're in right now is to bring the right to know to the front lines. So in August, we had a deadline of September 1st, and I know Wayne's going to be having a meeting coming up here soon, and we're going to find out what the Sonoma County Sheriffs are actually going to do about the criminal animal cruelty that we've exposed there. And we're going to be doing the September Day of Action, which is actually a week of action, where we're going to be occupying Whole Foods, and we're going to be ending that in a big crescendo at the end of the week on the 29th, which is a Saturday. So hopefully everyone can join us out there.
Cool, thank you, Anna. So we're going to move on to a circles updates from Kitty. Oh, sorry, yeah. Any questions or feedback?
So I really hope to see as many of you at the Week of Action. It's really important that we all come out to this week to make it as effective as possible. And I know that people have jobs and school and everything, but if you can take a few hours, maybe after work, after school, to come out, that will make a huge difference in our action. Because if we have 5 people, it's not going to be as impactful as having 50 people or 100 people, and especially on Saturday where we want to have 300 people. So if you haven't RSVP'd, you can do that now, but then I'm going to make an announcement at the end of the chapter meeting to have everybody RSVP. So that's all I wanted to say. It's important. If you have questions, just come to me.
Just since I'm here, maybe we can get an action item right now to figure out why there's potentially only 150 versus 300. Okay.
I've just a question. Do you think you could present people a tentative schedule so they can get a flavor for what's going on this week? And what are the key things? Like if you had to pick 1 or 2 things for people to come to, what are those key things?
Yeah, you want me to do that now? Can you pull the schedule up? Yeah, where? Can you?
And I think the team's still open to feedback on this too. So if you have any feedback on this schedule, it'd be good for people to share.
It's going to take a second to send it and open it.
Yeah, if anybody else has any
Cassie,
questions.
can you send the schedule? I think you know how to find it quicker than I can.
Anyone else have any comments while Cassie's finding? Chase?
One option for enhancing our outreach might be to put the word vegan in big bold print right up there somewhere, because I think as much as we're focusing more on activism than we are consumer veganism, okay. I think when vegans or vegetarians or anybody who's thinking about going vegan, whether it's for health, environment, or the animals, when they see that big sign, they know to come talk to us. A lot of times if they just see a big banner that says direct action everywhere, they don't really know what that means. They don't even know that it's animal related from a distance. But if they see it, then it'll attract our base.
Oh. Okay, so here is the calendar for the week for the September Week of Action, if you want to take a look at that. So yeah, we have trainings in there. We're going to have our meetings at Whole Foods. There's early morning coffee and snacks. Oh yeah, sorry, Go ahead.
Okay, so this is very just like in the early stages, so we're very open for feedback. I think you close it. Okay, good. So every day has a theme. So it's starting on Sunday and it finishes on Saturday. So the first day, which is going to be Sunday, September 23rd, it's going to be Why Occupy. So we're going to be explaining why we're there. We're going to start the whole occupation by doing the Whole Foods Challenge, going inside of the store and trying to get transparency, asking them if they supply from factory farms, just like we've been doing before. And the reason why we're doing it on the first day is because if we have a whole occupation that's going to last a whole week, we're probably not always going to be able to be inside the store. So that's how we're starting. We're gonna have coffee and snacks and a presentation about why DxE, why Whole Foods. Every gray area is just like outreach and occupation and just like regular stuff that doesn't really have something specific. And then we're gonna maybe be doing door-to-door outreach, and then at like around 7 p.m. we're gonna have a screening of Truth Matters in a panel with the first open rescue team that investigated a Whole Foods farm. Yeah, so that's kind of like the first day. The second day is the Humane Lie. We're going to have the ESA Bay Area core meeting outside of Whole Foods, which is really interesting. You know, DxE really cares about transparency, and the leadership team is going to have their meeting on the sidewalk of the place where we have a campaign. So that's going to be interesting. Almira thought of maybe having a vigil at Stockton, which is the main slaughterhouse for Mary's chicken that supplies to Whole Foods that DxE investigated. Maybe we wanted to do something creative, having a butcher table, investigatory training. On Tuesday, we are going to be telling the animal stories, so maybe bringing rescued animals. Andrew and I have been talking and coordinating a little bit about bringing the 4 chickens that are living in his house that were rescued from an Amazon farm during the mass open rescue. Also screening open rescue videos and just like regular speak out, megaphone training. On Wednesday, it's going to be more about the right to know, so maybe we're thinking of visiting the Emeryville headquarters and live streaming from the sidewalk of Whole Foods, having a call-in, writing, and review campaign. So just like calling Whole Foods customer services and asking them, how can you say that your animal products are humane when, you know, we have this footage and this evidence that you're torturing animals? Clean Whole Foods windows, that's a creative idea that we've been talking about for a while, which is just kind of like cleaning their windows to, in a way to creatively demonstrate that we want transparency from them, very literally. And then Akiva Truth. And then on Friday is kind of like band meeting Berkeley. So we're going to be talking about the science of social change and why 3.5% can change the world. Posturing around Berkeley. Around 7 p.m. a vegan potluck. On Friday, we're going to have kind of like Imagine Liberations, which will be a more positive, the most positive day probably out of the entire week, having just messaging, chalking, having a community and worker appreciation day. So appreciating the workers of Whole Foods because they are just part of the system, and they probably don't even want to work there. You know, like the workers at Whole Foods are not getting paid very well. So we just want to appreciate them for who they are as individuals. Maybe clean up the neighborhood, have vegan snacks share, music celebration, and then the last day, something cool. So that's kind of like what we have, and we're very open for feedback. So if you see the most interesting parts will happen starting around 7 p.m. because most people will probably not be able to attend the events during the day because of work and school and those sort of things. So if you can make the trip, I think definitely the most important day will be the last one, which is going to be on Saturday, and we're probably going to be releasing, you know, like the exact time soon. Right now on the event page, I think it says 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, so it's probably going to be that. But if anything changes, you can just find updates on the event page. And then if you're coming during the week, maybe come at 7 p.m. or whatever time works for you, especially the time that has specific events like presentations and trainings. The training working group is coming up with really amazing trainings that can help you. So if there's anything that you're interested in, this is the schedule, and I don't know, people can give feedback now.
Yeah, we don't have a whole lot of time for that, so I don't know if people want to save it till the end. Yeah, and for people who want the calendar, I did link it in the agenda. It says week calendar.
So we'll save feedback for that.
Yeah, feedback at the end, or if you want to email directaction@directactioneverywhere.com. But Kitty is going to go ahead and give us a circles update.
Hi, everybody. So I've been working on the Circles project. And so right now we have 14, hopefully completely active circles. I haven't been on all your meetings, but we have 14 circle hosts signed up with their meeting times and locations. And we have a website now, so it's dxe.io/circles. So if you want to see the map of circles that are open and contact the host and apply to join a circle, you're welcome to do that. I have a sign-up list from mostly people from the puppies event, so a lot of new people who have never been exposed to animal rights. 67 people signed up to be in circles. So the first thing on my to-do list is go through and contact all of them and help them buddy up with a circle. We have this coming Friday, the 7th, another opportunity that's perfect for recruiting people to your circle. So if you are a circle host, or if you want to be a circle host, let me know. I have like a sign-up form that's super simple. I would definitely come this Friday. Not only to meet new people and get them like pumped up about animal rights and justice in general, but also to hopefully get them plugged into a circle, because I think the Circles program has a lot of potential to get people involved in the community and like immediately, as soon as possible, get them creating friendships with people that make them feel a part of the community and want to come around, and hopefully they'll be activists for the long run. And then also the circles, we're trying to do this content thing with circles where I have topics for the first 8 weeks of circles. We're doing kind of like a trial run right now. And if you're in the circles host group, you've seen me sending messages about the content. And the content is aligned with the meetups topic. So each week, in each circle, people will ideally be discussing an important feature of our activism. So last week it was about the 40-year roadmap, and so people in their circle talked about that and just like dug deeper and thought deeper about these things. And then at the meetup we talked about it too. So the idea is that like we discuss in our small group with our friends, and then later at the meetup come together as a community and we can share with people our thoughts and stuff, because none of these things are like set in stone. We need to like keep evolving and working and thinking about these things in our network. And then, yeah, and just like, also I just wanted to mention, in case anyone's still like, what is the point of circles? That the whole point of this, and I really think we can do it, is to like develop community and friendships between people so that we don't kind of get lost in the mess of like these big events or lose focus, and we're able to like empower each other and ideally support each other too, if we're able to, and empower each other to stay active for animal liberation, because it can actually be easy for some people to like feel distant, feel isolated, or even forget how important what we're doing is, because it's so important. Like the animals need us right now. And also, the idea of circles comes from other social justice groups that have been extremely effective, such as Cosecha, which is an immigrant rights group that if like you look online, like they do amazing work, and they also utilize circles. So that's part of the reason we're doing it, to see if we can get this to work for us too. I don't know, do we want to do questions about it? Do we have time for that? Does anybody have any questions about circles? Any thoughts or questions about circles?
You can keep that one.
Oh, I'm going to keep it.
People understand the content outlines? The structure of it?
I guess I've been asked a couple times by other people how they could find people in the community that want to join their circle, and I know we have a list of that. Are we going to publicize that list or make that list available to the circle hosts in the near future?
Yeah, in the circle host chat, I've kind of been blowing it up, so I was like, maybe I shouldn't send another message, because I don't know if y'all are reading it or if I'm just posting a lot, but I'm sorry. I was planning on sending the list, but view only, so that people can like look through it and be like, oh, I met that person, and private message me and be like, hey, like I kind of had like, I talked to that person, had a good conversation with them, and I think that they want to be in my circle, or like that's somebody I know that lives close to me or something like that, and like let them like have the first like review, I guess, and then like let me know, and then anyone else, and like I was gonna give people like a whole day, and then the next day I was gonna go and like assign people that like based on location, so people that everybody put their zip code, so everybody in a certain zip code, I'd be like, hey, like all of you, I was gonna contact them because I have their contact information, is be like, there's a circle near you if you wanna contact them. Highly encourage you to. Their name is such and such. They're like really cool. They do this. Like give them a little bit of a feel of who the person is, and hopefully they'll join that circle. They're obviously, I can't like force them to, but yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Thanks, Kitty. Does anyone else have any thoughts or questions? We do have some time for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think this is the only way that we can keep growing, because our community has gotten so large that it doesn't have that kind of like social intimate feel that it used to have a few years ago. So I think this is really, really important. And yeah, everyone should join a circle. And it's just like so much fun. I feel like I'm regaining DxE, because it had become so large and to some extent bureaucratic that if I wanted to do something, it's like, oh, there's all these layers that I have to go through, and you know, and like now we have a small group and we're like, what do we want to do? We're like free. We want to do whatever we want. So I feel like this surge of creativity is coming back, that it's been really empowering. So I would suggest to everyone who hasn't joined one to do it, and you know, and take ownership. Like, what do we want to do? We can do anything we want. It's great.
Thanks, Orlando. Patricia?
My question is, Kitty, I heard you say that anybody could host a circle. So I wonder if there are any qualifications for circle hosts.
Yeah, the people that sign up to be a circle host, I looked through them all, and they have to be DxE organizers. Yeah. So everybody that's hosting a circle is an official organizer of DxE. There are circles that are unofficial. Like Matt, for example, has an unofficial circle that's awesome and serves many of the purposes of circles, but does involve like light drinking of alcohol, which currently isn't something that official circles can do.
Diana?
When we're talking about creating smaller communities within this community, it occurs to me that maybe when we put our circles together, we should put people that would be interested in being together, you know, people who are compatible.
Wayne?
Yeah, that is the intent of circles. And we want you to feel that it's an organic, authentic, genuinely positive experience of people you know and you care about. And we also want you to challenge yourselves to be radically inclusive and to integrate 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 more people. But yeah, the point very much is for you to feel like this is an organic relationship that you're developing, you already want to do. I mean, I've been saying for a while that hopefully it doesn't even feel like any other work because you're just hanging out with people you kind of want to hang out with anyways. And I would actually love, well, let me say 2 things. One is, our current thinking is we are going to make circles a requirement for all organizers and action team members. And so if you have feedback on that, let us know. But if you're in a working group, that working group counts as a circle. So if you're already in a working group, don't worry, that counts as your circle. But if you're not part of a working group, if you're an action team member, if you're a member of the community, if you have a vote on community decisions, you need to have a small group. That's our current thinking. And the second thing, I was hoping some folks could share their experiences in circles, both positive and negative. We had a circle at my house on Friday, which had way more people than I expected, and it was way more fun than I expected, to be honest, because people ended up playing board games and staying until like 1 a.m. But I'd love to hear kind of what other people are thinking about circles based on your experiences so far. So 2 questions or 2 prompts are, 1, how do you feel about making circles a requirement for at least organizers and action team members? Not visitors, not just normal people who just walk in the door, but people who make a commitment to our community. And second, what have been your experiences of circles so far in the first 2 weeks?
So we had a really small meeting, and it was just me and another person. And so we had a good time just connecting, and I feel like the person hopefully will be even more motivated to come to protests and other things. And we did briefly talk about the topic, which was the 40-year roadmap. So it was good. Anybody else?
I have a positive and a negative. So I'll start with the negative. So I have 2 circles. One is based on location because we're neighbors, and the second is based on just like friendships and like interests that we already have because like we already hang out regularly. So my second circle is at my house, and it's Ape, Carita, Carlos, Susana, Emily, and I. And we had our first meeting last week, and only Susana came. And I ate all the food before she got there. But so the problem with that circle is like we're all good friends and we hang out a lot, but they all live really far away. So like Carlos is in Concord and Carita lives in Palo Alto. So like that's a tough one. So that's gonna be a circle that I think like we'll be lucky if we ever all get together at the same time. My second circle has been really cool because we're neighbors, so we like can just walk there. And that's been Naomi, Michael, Chase, and recently Jacqueline. And Jacqueline and I met at a circle, and now she lives with me. So great story, best friends.
So I guess 2 bits of feedback. One on making circles a membership requirement for being an organizer. I think we've had circles for like a couple weeks that I think it's too early to be considering that. I feel like we should at least be waiting a few months to see how the program is playing out and if it's being constructive to the community and like all of those things. And I would also like to kind of make sure that we understand why we think making it a requirement for organizers would be beneficial to organizers. I feel kind of neutral on that, but I would like us to kind of think that out. The other thing was talking about official circles and unofficial circles. I've heard a bunch of people say that today. I think DxE circles are the official circles. I feel like calling them the official DxE circles kind of legitimizes the unofficial DxE circles, which we seem to be making as a way to allow people to kind of subvert DxE's code of conduct. That if we've all agreed that alcohol at DxE circles are not okay, I'm kind of opposed to saying an unofficial DxE circle where we don't care about DxE values. And so, I mean, I think it's great if people are having vegan meetups where they talk about DxE stuff and drink alcohol, but that's not a DxE circle. That's not an unofficial DxE circle. That's a vegan meetup.
Yeah, just big agreement with that. And just to point out, like, Matt is actually good. Matt never says that. Matt's just like, hey, we're going to come to my house and hang out and talk about stuff. So good job, Matt. We all should get on the same page.
Anyone else? Patricia?
I'll add myself after Patricia, too.
I just wonder if you have any conflict resolution policies in place in case somebody comes who, in case conflicts arise.
I think Paul will take that one.
Yeah, just like any other DxE spaces, if anyone is in violation of code of conduct or values, you can issue a report to report@directactioneverywhere.com, and members of the report team will investigate, verify that something like that is happening, talk to the person, call them in, depending on the level of the issue at hand, and hopefully have a conversation that goes a lot like, hey, this behavior is outside of our values, we need you to stop that in order to, be a part of our community, and then, hope for the best that they get that message. Otherwise, might have to ask you to leave.
Just briefly to add to that, we want to make this as easy as possible for the circle hosts and circle members. So if you have a problem, we'll definitely help you with it. Over the long term, we're definitely trying to build enough capacity so that if there is a conflict in your circle, over time, you get the training and support you need so you can handle it without support from the community team. But especially in the early stages, we're going to provide high levels of support. So I would say don't worry about that at all. If there's a tough conversation that needs to be had and you can't have it as a circle host, let us help you. And we're happy to talk to them and say, hey, this probably isn't the right circle for you. Let's find another circle that fits better.
I guess I just had a question, probably for Wayne, about making being in a circle a requirement for organizers and community members. You said that also a working group would count as a circle. So it seems to me like any organizer is already in a circle, a working group. They have to be that to be an organizer. And then would that be a requirement? So would any community member that joins a circle then be an organizer? I guess I'm just confused about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that, but you're right. Technically, you'd have to be, if you're an organizer, you're either in a working group or you're a circle host, right?
Right.
I guess there are a
few.
few.
An organizer already to be a circle.
Yeah, but I think we're changing that, Paul. I think we're going to change that. So there historically were some people who, I think the other way to put it is the folks who are doing recurring tasks kind of on their own are no longer going to be organizers unless they're part of a circle, and in particular, they have to be a circle host, I think. Or at least a co-host.
So, but then we also said that you have to be an organizer in order to be a circle host. So how would someone become a circle host if they're not an organizer, which would make them an organizer?
You would have to go through the circle host onboarding process. So there is a specific process for circle hosts. But just for now, it's not too hard. In the first 8 weeks before we actually permanently decide whether we want this program to continue after the first 8 weeks, I've said this a billion times, but it's very simple to become a circle host. All you have to do is be willing to welcome people into your home or another space, offer them some snacks, and share some content we provide. And whether you discuss that content is up to you, but you just at least need to share it in a Facebook message thread or WhatsApp thread. Let people see the content and say, hey, if you guys want to talk about this, let's talk about this. But our circle, what did we talk? We talked about the Liberation Pledge. We talked about talking to friends and family. We talked about all sorts of stuff at our circle that had nothing to do with the topic. And then we just played board games and ate a lot of food. So
that sounds great. Okay.
We have about 3 more minutes to discuss this if anyone wants to.
Anyone else that hasn't talked?
And maybe if anyone could share an experience, honestly, even like Eva, Dean, you've been to a lot of circles. What are you thinking about it so far? Would you be willing to share how you're feeling about them and what you think are the virtues or vices of the program?
Yeah, so I've just been to 2 so far. I went to Kat's and to Wayne's so far, and I think that there's definitely a lot of value to having these small group interactions because, these small group interactions were the kinds of things that got me initially involved and committed to DxE, feeling like I had a real understanding and had a place to ask questions that wasn't, so public. And just having relationships with people, because unless we have close relationships with other people in the group, we're not going to have the kind of courage that we need to do this kind of life-saving work. Yeah, so they were very different from each other, the two circle experiences that I had. I think that's great, because that's how organic small group experiences are, all going to be different. I thought it was great to get to know these two different groups of people. Since I just got here, it's nice to get to know folks. Yeah, that's all I have.
Chase?
So I just had a question of when you said that a working group is a circle. So like with DxE Music, we have our working group, but then on Sundays and then on Wednesdays is when we have our music working group circle. Because the circle serves a different function than the working group, right?
Yeah, we haven't worked out all the details yet. I think probably what's going to happen is working groups can qualify as circles as long as they include some element of social support of the team members. If the working group commits on a weekly basis to have like a 5 or 10 minute check-in on all the team members. I mean, honestly, working groups should probably be doing this anyways. Just saying, hey, how are you feeling? Like, is everything okay in your life? Do you have any needs that are not being met? Because one of the big goals of the Circles program is to make everyone feel like their personal needs and their personal voice matters to the people around them. And it's really hard. You know, I was talking to Patricia earlier today about how my time is so limited. And if everybody in the community is coming to me or Priya Almira, it's just, we can give you like 5 minutes, but the place where you can get more time is in your small group, you know, with your small group host.
Okay, so we're going to have to move on from that because we're out of time.
Can we give Dean one comment? Because he hasn't.
Oh, okay, yes. Go ahead. Quickly, please.
Something that makes me a little apprehensive about joining a circle myself or recommending it to my friends is it feels like it's a little rigid about like the 6 to 8 person group size, and we've talked about this before. I'm worried about like joining a circle and maybe like me and like 3 other people show up, and now I feel like I have to stay in this circle because I'm an integral part of its structure, and now it's going to be hard for me to go like between other circles or between other hangout groups, and now I'm like really committed, and if I'm not committed here after going to like one of the few meetings, then I'm now actively hurting the function of this small group.
Yeah, it's great feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Dean. Okay, all right, so we're going to have to move on, and the next is Chase is going to be talking about mobilizing in Berkeley. So Chase, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm going to record myself real quick, if everybody's all right with that, just so I can have your feedback on audio here so I can check it out later. All right, so I know that about a couple dozen of our community members weren't able to make it here today, but if you, by raise of hands, if you moved to Berkeley to fight for animal rights, raise your hand. All right, so keep them up real quick. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Okay, so that, yes, that counts, yes, yeah. Okay, so, okay, yeah, so that's probably like 20 out of the 40 people that are here right now. And a lot of, like I said, people who did move here are not here in this meeting. Okay, so I'm gonna talk for like 10 minutes about some of these ideas, and then we can hear your questions and comments for 10 minutes. So during a large workshop at ALC about community organizing, I raised my hand and said, you know, we've got like 1,200 people at this conference. What if 600 of us moved here for a year or 2 and took over this town? And when I said that, about 100 activists who were in that workshop erupted into cheers and applause, like they were way into it. And I think a lot of activists are able and willing to move here if we just give them a little guidance. We motivated a lot of people with the fur ban and ALC and just our work in general. And in addition to the great outreach we do with helping local animal lovers to become activists, I think we should also spend like 50% of our outreach efforts on getting trained and reliable activists in other parts of the country to move to Berkeley. So if I'm not mistaken, the MPI is averaging around 100 and hasn't changed in a year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that circles will definitely help a lot with getting new folks to join and keep them coming back and growing. But there are so many seasoned activists in other cities who are already working with DxE, SAVE, AV, and according to the roadmap, we need to get the MPI up to 600 by 2020, right? So that's 2 years to grow 6 times bigger. So I think we need to focus on geographically unifying our base And many of the professional activists who do move here can help us with increasing our local outreach efforts as well. So with an influx of out-of-town activists, we must be careful to avoid drama and infighting. So before they commit to moving, we should make sure that each person has reasonable expectations from people in leadership and from the community, and ask if they can have the end goal of resolving conflicts and working together for the animals. DxE's values would need to be clearly outlined along with our strategies so that everyone would be on the same page. And if 5 out of every 100 people who move here cause problems, it's probably still worth it. As with any occasion when someone moves to a new city, finding a new job and a place to live would be mostly their responsibility, but with us coaching them to the best of our ability by providing them with general info and networking. We would probably need a housing database of who is looking for a place to live and who has a spot available, as well as who is looking to start a new activist house. Maybe applicants could be asked to upload a 5-minute video of them talking about themselves, their style of living, and their passion for animal rights so that folks can get a sense of whether or not they might be compatible as housemates. If we make this a highly public campaign, one way to narrow the field of applicants to those who are most qualified could be to ask every applicant to list what activism they've done before on their database profile. And the ones with the best stats or who we think would best fit our community would get the bulk of our assistance. Everyone else would get the more basic assistance. Maybe we could also suggest clear and logical house rules to prevent and resolve conflict. So this could include things like cleaning responsibilities, noise levels and schedules, and then wise strategies for communication if problems do arise. So we could make a 5-minute video, potentially for the main DxE page, that would be called either, what if every vegan moved to Berkeley? Or what if every animal rights activist moved to Berkeley? All right. We know that not every, there's not that many houses in this town to hold that many people, but it gets people's interest. Okay, so this 5-minute video would be divided into 2 parts. So part 1 is 2 minutes about why to move to Berkeley. So we could show historical examples of activists relocating for a social justice movement, followed by footage of their mass protests and the successes. We can explain that Berkeley is a small, progressive town with a history of leading social change and is thus easily transformable. We can mention the fur ban and the successes of ALC. We can mention the Ban Meat in Berkeley campaign and that we have that a strong concentration of activists creates a bigger community so we can have larger protests, more frequent disruptions, and more outreach events, more rescues, political power with voting, networking capability, etc. We can also show our working groups and the division of labor that we have, so activists are more able to focus on particular forms of activism in which they thrive, such as outreach, music, video editing, protest organizing, potluck organizing, animal care, legal team, social media team, etc. Or just as an activist who shows up to events whenever they can. Mention that we also have Bay Area Animal Save and Anonymous for the Voiceless here. Mentioned that even if if the person only moves here for a year or 2, they would help give us the strength in numbers to change social norms and laws, and then maybe some of us can move to another city and take that one over too. All right, so part 2 of the video, so that was the first 2 minutes, and then the second part would be 3 minutes of this 5-minute video where we talk about how to move to Berkeley. So we could talk about job opportunities at vegan restaurants and mention that in October 1st, minimum wage is going up to $15 per hour, which is tied for highest in the nation and is twice the federal minimum wage of $7.25. We can show 2 different activist houses and how they operate and what they cost. We can mention how many activist houses we currently have and that we are wanting there to be even more. We can mention the housing database and other housing options such as Craigslist or the Facebook group Vegans of the Bay to find rooms for rents in this progressive town right near beautiful San Francisco. Right, use ARC as nearby parks and central hangout spots. Maybe explain how to live in your van for if you want to save money for a while. I know a lot of people in our community did that to transfer out here. show a sample of our weekly working group meetings, community events, and demos, like the actual list of them, so people can see when these are and make friends quickly and take action. We can mention a disclaimer in the video that we have limited time and money and that folks would need to be self-reliant, but that we would offer suggestions to help them transition into our community. And we should end the video with an empowering clips of fun community event, mass open rescue, ALC March, and then include a link to more info. So wrapping up, another thing we could do is have a Facebook live stream from Wayne's page or the main page titled Vegans Who Moved to Berkeley, or Animal Rights Activists Who Moved to Berkeley. It's a bit wordy. And so this could be like a 20-minute live stream of testimonials from like myself and 5 to 10 other activists about how we prepared to move to Berkeley, what we expected or feared, maybe mention a couple of obstacles that we overcame, what the DxE community feels like here in terms of friendship and empowerment. We can mention details about our personal housing situation, the cost of rent, employment and income, projects we're working on, and ultimate long-term goals. So just, like 5 or 10 people talking about that, like a 1-minute testimonial from each of those people in a live stream. And then we can have a bunch of personal live streams or posts throughout the year from individual DxE activists who moved to Berkeley. So I could make a live stream just of me talking about it in addition to that group live stream. And maybe we could have one activist per week sharing their personal testimonial like this on Facebook. Orlando had a good idea, or him and some others had an idea of the Activist Motel Fellowship, so imagine a big activist house with 2 steady DxE organizers, local organizers, and then 5 to 10 transitioning activists in that house who get rotated out every 3 months. So just to help them get their bearings in the town as they move here and get financially stable, and then into a more permanent house. And so a Patreon, if Orlando wants to talk more about this, but theoretically, and I guess this has happened in other communities, non-animal rights, but a Patreon account would constantly pay for 3 months of rent for all chosen applicants while they move here and search for a job and more permanent residence. This scholarship is more exclusive, and applicants would need to be thoroughly screened and already established in the movement. But these are like serious people who we want, like move to Berkeley, and it's on us for the first 3 months, like or at least free housing and maybe free food. I don't know, but something to think about. And then lastly, in a dream world, the activist apartment complex, so maybe the fundraising team can convince a wealthy vegan philanthropist to buy an apartment complex and rent it solely to DxE activists, ideally for free.
Thank you, Chase. That was pretty awesome. Yeah, so I'd love to hear people's thoughts and feedback. And Paul, do you want to help keep stack? Thank you.
So thank you, Chase, for sharing that. I think overall it's great. I am somebody who moved to the Bay Area because of animal rights specifically, just because I wanted to organize with DxE. And the reason why I moved here was because I had a conversation with one individual, not because of DxE as a whole. And okay, I took notes while you were talking, so I can say everything that I wanted to say. So yeah, it's great if people want to move to Berkeley, but I don't think that DxE should be the one encouraging people to move, because it can set people up for failure. Because if people expect that they will receive a lot of help, then they're gonna come in an illusion that they're gonna maybe receiving financial help, or they won't know how hard it is to live here. Living in the Bay Area is really expensive. Finding jobs sometimes can be hard. And I think that just invest in resources like money or time in people that maybe we don't have a good record on how they work, and what they will be doing is not a good use of our time or our resources. So yeah, and like if they feel like DxE gave them these expectations that, oh, you move here, you're gonna help us, and all is gonna be awesome, then it can create a lot of conflict, which I also don't think it's a good use of our time. If people are getting upset because the way that their house rules are not working, that is not something that we should be spending our time on. We should be doing things that are more effective for animals that go in alignment with our chapter. So I don't think we should be doing that. But I would love if people would encourage other people individually to move here if you think that that person has a good record of responsibility, independence, and that can live a good life here. Because it's really sad to see people moving here and not having enough money to live or to have food, and they end up moving back or end up not having, you know, an overall good life.
Thank you, Tanya. I think those are some really lofty goals, and I really appreciate how in-depth you went into that and taking an idea and like such a grandiose thing, and it's phenomenal. But I really wonder, what is the holistic view? Like, what is DxE really going to gain from this? Because, and I also think that, yes, it would be great for Berkeley, it would be great for our MPI and, you know, our community, but what would this do for the towns that we take the activists from? How are we supporting our fellow like chapters? And I thought when we think about emergent leadership and we think about really building up other chapters, I think that especially DxE, you know, funneling this campaign, for me, I think it would have adverse effects, even if like the intent is pure. And yes, I think it would be great to have more activists here, but I just think like the goal really should be globally to build up the chapters where they live. And organically, I feel like we could do a little bit better with, recruitment, but I think there's so many other things we can do. However, I thought some hybrids of a solution to that would be, and like you were saying, more of a fellowship, like internship programs. So maybe we could have on a trial basis, people who are already established in other chapters could potentially come out here for training on a, trial basis, something of that nature.
Lewis, and then Leslie, then Chris.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say, fantastic presentation. I thought that was super well thought out, and like clearly you put a lot of time and effort into it. I think that, I moved here to get involved with DxE specifically, not just for the animal rights movement. I always try to talk about concentration when I'm talking to other activists in other areas, and I think that kind of to respond to your comment, like if we look at historical movements, concentration is how things happen. If we have 10 activists, I want them in one city, not in 5 cities, or definitely not 10 cities, even though other chapters do get a lot of awesome work done. I think that the video is a good idea. I think that it would be much longer than 5 minutes. I think what you're talking about is more like a 15 to 20 minute video if you want to get into the details, and I think it could be maybe a really good 5-minute overview and then a long blog post or something like that would be a better format for it. But I do think that overall, we should be talking about this more. We should be talking about concentration. It's, I think a lot of us moved here because of the theory of concentration, and something we've moved away from, mostly out of fear of people expecting too much from us when they move here and not having clear expectations of what it really means to live here. So I think if we could set those expectations really well, I think it's a really good idea, and I think Activist Hotel, that's an amazing idea. But maybe a couple years from now, unless things start really exploding. But I think, yeah, if people can figure out their own housing situations, we can do things like say, oh, this is how we were able to do it. Not like this is how we'll help you set it up, per se, but giving examples of how it's been successful for other people.
So we got Leslie and Chris. Patricia would like to speak too. I'll throw myself in briefly. Zach.
Yeah, I want to say it sounds great, and I understand the importance of concentration, but it sounds like it would demand a lot of resources of our organization. And I think that as Tanya said, it does raise the risk of raising people's, unreal expectations. And the reality is, it is tough to move to the Bay Area. Another thing I would like to say is, and especially to say move to Berkeley. There's other communities around Berkeley, San Leandro, Fremont, El Cerrito, whatever, and which might be a little bit easier, so we could highlight them. But again, I think that the danger of us setting up ourselves as like an employment agency, a housing agency, and even horror of horrors, a psychological counseling agency would be could be a real mistake.
So I love all of the ideas except for one, and especially I love like the the like resource doc, like, hey, this is how you might consider setting up a house. Like someone said, it was like, not this is what we will do for you, but this is how you might think about doing it. The one idea I don't like is just like really pushing people to move here, like really like that aspect of it. And the reason I think concentration really matters, but when we look at other movements, especially like, I mean, the one I know the most is the civil rights movement, there's like, yes, concentration, but concentration in many places, not just one, and decades of groundwork in other places as well, and we need strong chapters in other places. It's also led to a lot of conflicts, like when people feel like we're stealing their best organizers, and sometimes chapters fall apart after they're leaving there. And I think when we could have more stronger centers. The other thing is I've been really feeling like there's too much Bay Area centric thinking, and I've actually really quite upset at the current ALC goals of like SF Bay organizers, because this is a global movement. I'm in a global network, and this is like for everyone. And so I was just like, yes, I want to see more DxE organizers, but in Berkeley, but I also want to see more DxE organizers in other places. And my last comment is about, I forgot it.
Yeah, we only have about like 1 more minute on this one, so people could keep it like really short. 10
I'll
seconds.
just say that I think it's a great vision, and it would be it's wonderful to hold for the future, but one that needs to be developed more, because it's not, this community needs a lot of work in being healthy before you can really invite people into this visionary community.
Probably last comment.
I just add a couple points. One is that if you look at our 40-year roadmap, though, it does really specifically lay out right in the beginning that like concentrating in Berkeley is a really important thing. So I do value concentration in places like Berlin and other places, but I also really value Berkeley concentration. Also point out too, Berkeley is in the midst of a very visible and understood in most communities housing crisis, and to go and as a network say, hey, we want like hundreds and hundreds of people to move here right now. People are going to be like, y'all a bunch of assholes. Like we're living on the streets and struggling. So you really want to be careful about the way you phrase things and set things up. At the same time, I talk to people all the time and encourage them to move here, but it's just something to be careful with.
Yeah, just really briefly.
I don't know what you want me to say on that point, but yeah, I moved here because you asked me to. You said I should, and
same here.
Yeah, and if he hadn't asked me to, like personally, I don't know if I would have. So so thank you, and I think one really.
I just learned this now.
What?
I appreciate that. I know I did ask.
Yeah. One thing I think that would be super easy that we could set up like immediately would just be like a Facebook group to just connect people. Like they don't have to have any more support than that. Just connect people that like already, they're on their own 2 feet. They just need to know who else is available and wants to find a room and stuff. Within like DxE specifically, I think.
Yeah, I think if anybody else has any more feedback or thoughts, you can probably just send them to Chase.
Yeah, it's chaseavier@yahoo.com.
Okay, cool. Thank you, everyone. That was really awesome.
Thanks for all
Great
your feedback.
discussion. We'll move on then to Cassie, who's going to give an update on the convergence.
Lipstick.
Okay, I don't mind. Okay, so registration for the Convergence launched a few weeks ago, so you've already heard about it, but if you haven't registered yet, you really should register. You can go to dxe.io/ALWC, the letters for Animal Liberation Western Convergence, and I really encourage you to register now if you're planning to come, because there's a good chance if you do now, you'll get a spot if you want it on one of the vans heading from Berkeley to Salt Lake City, and there's just also a higher chance we can help you with other things if you're on board with it early, like trying to find housing and stuff. But the registration is gift economics based, so if that's something that you're curious about before you register, that basically means that you can pay what you think you should be paying, and it's really in your hands. So if you think that you've been to the ALC before and it was amazing and you want to contribute a huge amount, awesome. If you can't afford to, that's great too, because that's the point of gift economics, that because other people are paying more to support something they believe in, then other people are able to come. So if you're someone who can't afford to pay, then know that there are definitely people who can't, and we obviously want them to register and come, and we're able to make that possible because other people pay more than the maybe $70 per person that the conference expenses are for things like venues and AV and snacks and everything that's provided. A lot of work goes into it. And we also have some really exciting updates, but I honestly can't say very much. I'm just gonna get your curiosity piqued today. That's my only goal, because I can't say details, but I love piquing people's curiosity, so it's a great job anyways. So we have exciting updates in basically 2 different areas. One of them is with people who are coming, with potential celebrities coming, and I obviously don't want to say anything before it's really confirmed, and people who are famous tend to be busy. People who are really important tend to not be able to confirm necessarily right early on. But one person we have announced already who we know is confirmed is Ingrid Newkirk, and if you came to the Convergences last year, which was in Berkeley that time, and this one will be in Utah, Ingrid's just traveling the world for us. It's so amazing to have her support. She spoke last year, and she's going to be speaking again this year. She's so wise, so experienced in animal rights specifically, and it's amazing not just to hear her talk, but to be attending a conference with her and to see her there. She's a person, she's so humble, she really believes in us, and as you're admiring her, she's admiring you, so it's incredible. So that should be enough of a reason to come, but maybe you don't love Ingrid as much as I do. But anyways, there's some other people who hopefully we can find more and more people in the next couple of months and be announcing them. And the second area of exciting updates is just an ongoing conversation Wayne's having with some people who are big in big ag, which is very other end of the spectrum from people who we anticipate coming and speaking about animal rights and attending the conference. But it's actually pretty interesting because they're people who we would expect to be trying to shut down this conference or trying to do whatever they can to hurt us. And they're having an interesting stance on not thinking that the Smithfield 5 or the Norba 6 should even be going to prison. So their allyship, I think that's a word, their alliance, whatever, is very surprising and could potentially be useful. The conversation's still ongoing, so I won't say too much about what it's going to lead to unless Wayne wants to say something, but I think it's still ongoing at this point, but hopefully we'll have some details about it that can be announced. I don't know. It might be the kind of thing that you can't necessarily trust people who could be lying to you and have a clear reason to want your objective to fail. But it's interesting just to hear so many people saying that they don't believe activists deserve to go to prison for 60 freaking years for saving animals. And that's the general sentiment of the media in Salt Lake City. It's the general sentiment of the public when we go out and talk to people about this. So if you want to be in a really crucial moment where we're polarizing this issue, do you think animal rescuers deserve to go to prison, or do you think that companies abusing animals should be the ones at fault? Then this is the place to come and show your support and get more people to realize this issue's happening. So it's the 16th to the 20th of November, but that Friday, the 16th, it's just half a day really. It's starting in the evening. So if you work through Friday and you feel like you can't get there Friday, that's okay. Come after work or after school, because Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we still want you there, even if you can't come for all of it. But it does start Friday through Tuesday, and then some people will be staying after for community, giving back to the communities there, because we've just brought a bunch of people in, and also potentially celebrating Thanksgiving on Thursday if people are still there. So I only had 5 minutes. I don't know how long that was, but if there is a question or two, yeah. Does someone want to give Patricia a mic? Thanks.
I just wonder if you are going to deal with any of the negatives, since PETA is a pretty controversial organization, and I was just doing some research, and it's really hard to understand what the truth is about, the controversies around them. Are you going to deal with that at all?
It's really interesting you asked that, because when Ingrid came to speak last year, we did have people go to some great measures to protest that fact, and not even necessarily really vegan people. I think there are dog and cat people who decided to show up, and there are 5 people maybe with signs outside of the campus building she was speaking in. But Wayne went out and talked to them, and I think that's generally our plan when anyone protests us. We've been on the other side. We know how people feel about voicing their opinions, and we appreciate it and would just want to engage in a dialogue and understand what's happening. Any last question? I think I am over time, so maybe not. But you could always email me. Oh, okay. Do we have time?
Very quickly.
I just wondered, are we getting a lot of people signing up?
Tanya, do you know the latest? I think the last I heard was 180 registered.
That's great so quickly. Isn't it just been available a week or weekend?
It's been a few weeks, but. But our objectives are very high.
Well, I just want to say that I went to Utah with a bunch of DxE folks last year, and it was it was one of like the highlights of my life. I have to say that. And so I really recommend that if you possibly can, you go. I mean, it was amazing, and this is going to be even better because so much more planning is going into this. So anyway.
Yeah, that trip was planned in like 4 days. So thanks for saying that, and post it on Facebook and invite your friends to come. There's a Facebook event page for the Animal Liberation Western Convergence. Post about past convergences, ALCs, why you think people should be there. That would really help promotions.
Awesome, thanks Cassie. All right, so we're going to move on then to announcements as well as shout outs. So Tanya.
Yes, I talk about the importance of attending the September Day of Action. And I want to take my time on this announcement to ask everybody right now, if you haven't, to pull out your phone and RSVP. You can find the event page, dxe.io/Day of Action. And if you don't have your browser and it doesn't really work, you can find it Occupy Whole Foods: the finale. So please do that right now if you haven't RSVP'd. We only have 38 RSVPs on this one. We have more RSVPs on the other one, which is the whole week. So we have two different event pages. The one for the whole week is dxe.io/Week of Action. And then there you can see the schedule for all 7 days. And this one is the last one. So please, dxe.io/Day of Action. Right now, I'll really appreciate it. And also, I'm gonna be taking a picture of myself after the chapter meeting with a little paper that says #OccupyWholeFoods. And I'm gonna post it on my social media sharing why I'm gonna be taking part on this occupation. So if everybody here could do the same, that would be awesome. So you can hopefully inspire the people around you to join us in that week of action.
Leslie, Gino, Anna. I can give you them. There you go. Diana. Chase, I mean, we're approaching 2:30. But.
Okay, so I wanted to share that yesterday, members of our legislative working group met with a potential city council member. His name is Igor Tregub, and he's running for District 1. And according to Jack, who attended the meeting, it looks like he's going to win. So I'm burying my lead here. The good news is he was very supportive of our right to know legislation. And he's really looking for us to support his candidacy, and he's looking for any volunteers who can contribute. And I mean volunteers in terms of phone banking, volunteers in terms of canvassing. And it turns out that he is, according to Jack, the most progressive person running for city council. He's very strong on housing issues, environmental issues, and now right to know. And we asked him when we could start working with him after November. He said day one. So I think this is super good news. And he also is a supporter and a colleague of a woman, Kate Harrison, who is also running for city council. And Kate Harrison has been an advocate for animals and also a progressive. And I'm not a fan of Meatless Monday, but she is working to bring Meatless Mondays into Berkeley schools. So I think the possibility of working with Kate Harrison and Igor is a great opportunity for us, and we really should go for it. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Leslie. We have about 2 more minutes for.
I'll make it really quick. I just wanted to announce that we're going to be doing outreach at Berkeley City College on Tuesday, September 4th, which is coming up in a few days, from 10 to 2. There's an event page on the SFA, DxE SFA chapter page, and you can talk to me if you have any questions about it. Jason and Nigel will be out there playing live music, and we'll be showing some footage and talking to students. So it'd be great if you all could make it.
Thanks, Anna.
Okay, I have a shout out actually right now. One of the greatest things I love about being in DxE is watching people grow as activists, and I think a lot of us get a thrill by seeing that. And yesterday, the San Francisco Working Group had its monthly meeting, and at the end of it, we did a restaurant disruption in the city. And Rasa did her first organizing and marshaling of this disruption in a restaurant. I'm so proud of her. Love you, Rasa. Thank you.
Thanks, Gino. Maybe one more. Right.
Is it relevant to everyone?
So you mentioned supporting the District 1 candidate who we could have a relationship with. How can we find out about supporting their campaign, phone banking and all that?
We're working on plans to organize around, creating a structure so that people can do that. One of the suggestions that has come up is to do canvassing after the meetup every Saturday. But as Wayne was saying, this would be so, if we could actually elect him, that would give us a lot of juice on the Berkeley City Council.
Okay, one more, really quick. Chase.
Okay, so every Sunday night, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. right here, we got DxE music. We can teach you how to drum, how to sing, all that good stuff. And then on Friday, September 7th, this upcoming Friday, we have open mic and potluck here from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And there's like 30 people going, so enjoy.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do, oh, wait, what? I think really quick.
Okay. We've been having vigils in Modesto for a couple months now, and Friday we had a very successful one where truck carrying pigs came in. We were able to give them water. After it parked inside the slaughterhouse, several of us actually walked straight into the slaughterhouse to give water to the truck for 10 minutes while the employees were yelling at us. And then we stopped another truck after that to give them water. We're planning on going back again on Thursday night. Caveat, we've had a lot of vigils where we did not see trucks, but we're hoping that going back again on short notice, that would be pretty successful and make a big impact.
And also, there is the risk that we won't see trucks, but I think we are figuring out the schedule of this slaughterhouse. I think the day that we're going back is a safe day and a safe bet, and we're going to be there for a nice length of time. And also, there's this construction that's going on right now that's making it really easy for us to stop trucks. So we're trying to take advantage of that while it's still going on. And also, we're wondering about getting, I think vigils on their own are important and people need to go to them and people need to bear witness. But I think if you can ask your friends and you can bring your friends to meet these animals that they cannot save, it's going to get them to come to that protest. It's going to get them to join circles and etc.
All right, cool. So I'm just going to recap the action items, and that'll be the end of it. So it'll be action item 1, community, committee, and possibly core should consider how working groups and circles will relate. Check why maybe only 150 people came to Puppy's event if the number really wasn't really 300, and then do a vote of confidence with global organizers on the proposal that won today's vote, and bring to core for any immaterial changes needed to begin using these new values. And that's it. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Oh, one quick. Oh, all right. Really?
The event is going to be hosted by Modesto Animal Save and Bay Area Animal Saves. It'll be Thursday night, so look for it on Facebook. Thank you.
All right.
It's going.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Modesto.
Madhu is only in town this weekend, so if people want to go to Nature Vegetarian tonight to spend time with her, I know there's a finance work party 4:30 to 6:30. So maybe right after that, if people can come over 6:30ish to Madhu. She's only here for the weekend. She leaves tomorrow at 6 a.m. So, yeah, so we should meet everybody if you want to come.
John Mom.